train that's being set there by Team Sky at the front end of this main field, I would think they would be quite happy to try and enjoy the view of this magnificent backdrop of Les Gorges du Tarn as we move into the French call a lot of these cliffs in this area un cirque, which is a very steep cliff that can drop down between 600 and 900 meters, and that's how deep some of these cliff faces are as they drop down into the Tarn, down into the valley below the Tarn gorges. They really are a beautiful platform to look down. And of course, just as a reminder that you can do canoe kayak there, well, they've made a bicycle to welcome the passage of the Tour de France into this region. Just having a quick look at the early part of this race. It was IAM Cycling who were chasing down the group.
Up on the finishing line, it's become rather overcast. They have promised there could be rain towards the end of the day of racing, and we're finishing on a wide open airfield after the long climb up to the line, which is actually quite a brute.
Well, it's a beast of a climb, I'd have to say, Phil. It's around about 3.5 kilometers long, 10% in the steepest part. But once you actually get up to the aerodrome...
Oh dear, take a look at that, Paul.
Oh, he's fine. I think they had it calculated to absolute perfection there. I certainly... One of the things in my life I've never really been too keen to try.
Now, what goes up goes down, no thanks.
But just coming back to the climb, Phil, down towards the end, I have to say that it's a really nasty climb. The measured part of the climb is 2 kilometers long, and it's around about 10%.
Well, they're more interested in our helicopter than they are about the man they just chucked off the cliff. But he's right above the River Tarn as we now go right into the throat of the gorges here. One of the most stunning areas of France. This very different to the Pyrenees where we left. You can get down to the Pyrenees in an easy half day's drive from where we are, but we're heading across towards the Alps now.
There's still Steve Cummings of, still Ian Stannard on the front for Team Sky doing that pacemaking, and what a job he's doing. In fact, he's reduced that advantage by a couple of minutes down to 6 minutes and 6 seconds. This leading group, they're going to have to start now thinking about how they're going to get themselves a victory on the stage this afternoon. Number 82 is Warren Barguil. He's trying to ride himself back into the main field. He's a guy who I think we'll see ride well in the overall standings. He's currently sitting in 11th place at 9:53 down. And as you could see by his arm there, one of the many riders who've had an accident in the Tour. But he's bounced back, and I think we can see him go out aggressively into the Alps in a couple of days' time.
He is in the back bunch, by the way, as we switched up to the breakaway here to see the other Frenchman, Romain Bardet and Thibaut Pinot, who were thought to be real challengers in the Tour this year. Hasn't been the way. They've had a lot of bad luck, and Bardet, number 13, with his numbers alternating, is now looking as though he's finding form. Lost 17 minutes, by far the best man in this breakaway at the moment, and gaining time. But the gap is coming down reasonably quickly now. 6 minutes.
It
really is an incredible place to go for a ride. Just having a quick look down there, and that is the rather beautiful castle of Caz. This castle, built in the Renaissance style on the banks of the River Tarn, dates back to 1490, although there have been certain additions onto that castle in 1630 and 37, although dramatically restored in the 19th and 20th centuries. It was during the French Revolution used as a prison, and nowadays it's a luxury hotel. And it's at the bottom of one of the steep cliffs, a cliff called the Cercle de Pugnadoir. Well, just looking at Ian Stannard is doing quite an amazing job here for the team. He's got it locked in at the 6.5 minute mark now, 45 seconds. There once again is that magnificent backdrop of the castle of La Caz. Really is beautiful. It's an idyllic setting. In fact, it's got a covered ceiling which has been painted with the portraits of 8 women from the Milan family, and who were the owners of the castle historically, as we make our way deeper into these gorges. As we come back to look at the main field here on stage 14, what an amazing backdrop we've had here throughout the course of today's stage. You're going deep into the valleys and the gorges of the River Tarn. The backdrops of the Cevennes National Park, which is a beautiful national park in the early part of this stage, and the riders going deeper and deeper into Les Gorges du Tarn. Magnificent backdrop, beautiful part of France, which has hardly been touched at all. Very, very untouched. Brilliant environmental region, as we see now Team Sky doing a brilliant job of work on the front of this main field, and Ian Stannard is the man who has been called up by the team to do the majority of this pacemaking. He's got the breakaway group of 20 riders locked in at 6.5 minutes, but beginning to loom on the horizon now is the next climb of the day. It's a second category climb, the Côte de Sauveterre. It's a pretty difficult climb too. And of course François Hollande, the President of France, are having a chat there with Christian Prudhomme, the organizer of the Tour de France. He's come in to follow this stage on the way up to Mende. Just trying to listen in there and see if pick up a few tidbits on the French economy and global economy, and of course probably one or two discussions going on there with the President of France on the future of the Tour.
Yes, and the price of petrol when you follow a bike race, who knows? 6 minutes 32 seconds is the gap. We had the Prime Minister the other day. Now François Hollande has joined the race, or will do as soon as it comes up alongside the team car there, the race director Christian Prudhomme. 6 minutes 32 seconds. The breakaway here still driving on and holding again the distance. So we might well still be treated to two races, one for the stage win and then the attacking of each other on the last climb to gain time on the hill.
Yeah, well, Phil, this final climb of the day is just so difficult that even though the overall contenders are a long way down on the road, they're well ahead of all of those riders in the actual overall race. They have to be attentive on this Côte de la Croix-Neuve, as it's called. It's a climb of about 3 kilometers in length. 10% the gradient, and it's pretty much 10% the whole of the way up. But it's also important to be well positioned, because as you come through Mende, it's rather a small town. It's an old town which has got medieval origins. You have to be well placed as you take the right hand bend into the start of the climb, because if you take that bend in 25th or 30th position, the road is so narrow it's actually very difficult to move up to the front of the peloton.
And they're going through this valley. It's an incredibly high speed, with an average speed for the race so far today of 44.1. We're still ahead of the fastest, only just the fastest expected time of arrival today. So they've not been taking it easy at all. Tomorrow we continue our journey and progression towards the Alps as we go to Valence. 42.5 kilometers left to ride. At the current speed, it's probably just over an hour of racing, because they will slow down on the climbs.
Well, they've got 3 serious climbs on the day ahead of the riders: the Côte de Sauveterre, the Côte de Chabris, which I thought was rather a difficult climb, although I suppose it is a good thing François Hollande has probably come down to the Tour de France today to make sure that all the roads have been resurfaced for the Tour, because certainly that 4th category climb, the Côte de Chabris, had a very nice surface on it. But I thought the descent away from it down into the outskirts of Mende was a little bit tricky, with quite a bit of traffic furniture there.
Well, Steve Morabito crashed, has now been confirmed, has broken his collarbone earlier.
Yeah, that was one of the nasty crashes early on. In fact, we're getting a press release through from Team Giant Alpecin. The abandon of Ramon Sinkeldam, the Dutch rider, on their squad was because of stomach problems. Something that happens a lot to riders during hot stages in the Tour de France, because you take on board so much liquid that very often that you can develop some kind of a stomach complaint, and that is what has been reported to have happened to Sinkeldam. So there's another team now down to just 7 riders. Beautiful chance there as they go through the small town, that's the main field, going through the small town of Saint-Chély, and that's a beautiful one-arched bridge just across there, which dates back to the 19th century. Only allows 1 vehicle at a time, or 1 vehicle wide, to pass it. Now back with a leading group as they come around this corner, just 20 riders, and there's a lot of work. Team FDJ have done a good job here as well, because Team FDJ have managed to put 3 riders into this leading group, and that will put a bit of pressure, I would think, onto the shoulders of Thibaut Pinot. Pinot's a long way down, not riding the race that he rode last year, but he'd love to get a win.
Well, this is it, Paul. The next check, they've got across, so we call them the flatlands, although they weren't completely flat. They're now on the hills that take us up to the finishing line. This first one, 9 kilometers long, and it's got a second category tag.
Yes, I think it's a very difficult climb. It's a bit tricky once you get over the top, but we'll have a chance to see if Team FDJ are doing all of the pacemaking for their man Thibaut Pinot. Pinot is a long way down in the overall standing this year, but to try and, as the French say, save his Tour de France, a stage victory today could be very important. And because this is a tough climb, I think they will try and make it as hard as possible to get rid of some of the passengers from this leading group.
I think the hill will be hard enough to split the group. Peter Sagan in the green jersey will try to hang on in there. It's a big moment for him to gain points at the finish for that green jersey. But we'll see. Thibaut Pinot did say as long ago as 5 or 6 days ago he had no chance now of winning the Tour de France after his bad luck of the opening week. He would look one day for a winning breakaway, and this has got to be his best chance.
Yep, 8.5 kilometers to go to the summit. Thibaut Pinot, Phil, the guy who finished in 3rd place overall last year, had a pretty disastrous opening week of the Tour de France. He's now 35 minutes down, but as far as the French are concerned, if he can win a stage, it's almost as good as finishing 19th or 20th in the overall standings. That could be even more important to him. And this is a stage that has a great cachet to it because of the fact that it's seen riders like Alberto Contador win here in the past in races like Paris-Nice. It's seen Joaquim Rodriguez win here, and so obviously I think everybody would like to try and win. I suppose the most important victory here was on the 14th of July back in 1995 when Laurent Jalabert was the winner. And if my memory serves me correctly, Phil, on that occasion Laurent Jalabert was wearing the green jersey as leader of the points competition.
I do believe you're right. I think I'm certain you're right, yeah. He was one of the few points riders who also was a king of the mountains in the Tour de France. He was an unusual sprinter, Laurent Jalabert. He works here now on the Tour de France, a TV commentator. 6:09 the gap, but it's come back pretty rapidly because the leaders are now climbing and the peloton is still getting ready to start that climb. So you've been in many breakaway groups like this in your 17 rides around France. What would you be thinking right now?
Well, the moment where they are now, 25 miles to go, 45 kilometers to go, it's all about efficiency. You know, for example, I would pick the tallest rider in the peloton, make sure I sit behind him so I get just a little bit more of a draft than other people. You know, we think about rehydrating, don't forget to eat. Spin your legs, don't push too much gears. You try to be as efficient as you can, and then you just got to launch one big vicious attack in the end, trying to break the group apart, because the non-climbers in this group, they definitely need to come to that last climb with a minute ahead of Thibaut or Romain Bardet, because none can climb better than them too. So they got to split the group up before.
Yeah, but Jensy, that must have been a massive problem for you when you were racing, because you were such a big bike rider. Everybody wanted to sit behind you.
That is true, but believe it or not, I was actually pretty aero on my bike. I had a pretty low position, so I could go down pretty low and pretty aero. I remember in team time trials, a lot of riders said, no, I don't want to be behind Jens. He's not good at for shelter. So I was pretty okay.
Moment we're hearing of a crash in the main field. Somebody's gone down.
Laurens Tendam.
And Laurens Tendam, we believe it is, as we watch the riders go past the President of France. And then he'll be in that car, I am sure. Now, at the front of the moment, it's Ledagno who's making the move at the front. As the President now said, I've got to rush, I've got to follow a bike race. I can't find the driver, though.
It's almost as if the teams have been given the right to sit in their positions in the overall standings in the main field.
Well, it's showing that in fact the peloton is now travelling quicker as they're guided up here by Richie Porte on the breakaway. Ledagno is the leader at the front of the breakaway.
Now I think the reason for that, which is why they've brought Richie Porte to the front end of the peloton now, Phil, is to just notch up the pace a little bit, to make it uncomfortable, if you like, in the main field, to discourage anybody from the other teams of thinking, right, here's a good chance to launch a counter move, and if you make it that little bit uncomfortable, everyone says, well, I think I'll just stay here. I'll look for a little bit more shelter from the wind, and I'll try and find the sweet spot in the peloton where I can just get dragged along.
Sepp Van Mark, the rider at the back, we saw on that long breakaway in the Pyrenees. I think he's paid the price the last couple of days. He's really been hanging on at the back
back
of the
when
race.
Team Sky was
And those bluish jerseys there
fairly
of
new,
the
and,
last year's
Johnny
winner. You can
Wiggins
just
was
see him
still
in the white helmet
like the
there.
team
That's
captain,
red,
team
white and
leader.
green band, the champion of Italy, and last year's tour winner
It's a
Nibali.
few years
They're
before
all
the
poised
first
just in
World
case
Olympics.
something happens. TJ Van Garden's team are right there as well.
Well, TJ Van Garden's team have been absolutely phenomenal since the start in supporting the American. He came here initially, Phil, to go better than his 5th place overall in the tour that he's had on 2 occasions. He's also been the winner of the white jersey Best Young Rider competition. Here, he's always said that he's thinking about a podium position. He's currently there. This is the winner of yesterday's stage, teammate of TJ Van Garden, Greg Van Avermaet. And who knows, Phil, with the victory that he got yesterday, he might be starting to nurture thoughts of 2 wins back-to-back.
Well, I don't think this course is too hard for him, but how much did he take out of himself yesterday? He made a long sprint and had to hang on from that late challenge from Peter Sagan.
I would like to find different stages, not only flat stages, for the sprinters to win. I also like arrivals for the punchers.
Sometimes I've got a bit of everything now, we've got ideas.
We need to change something each day so we don't have the same scenario and the same winners each day, because the world is like this now.
There's the steepest section of the course and he kicks again. A Contour's trying to match him. Rodriguez is up there as well.
It's an extreme effort for 2 or 3 minutes. It's too hard for the sprinters, but it's too explosive for the pure climbers, but it's perfect for me. On these finishing ramps, it's important to ride in the right position. You need to be in the first 15 riders. Anything further back, and it's impossible. If we're too far behind, if we're too far ahead, if we wait for too long, the small things can make a big difference. It's like the sprinters, you need a little bit of luck too, even though the winner is often the best.
Richie Porte sitting on the front there. He's giving Ian Stannard, who's done a bunch of pacemaking so far, a little bit of a rest and respite. So you can see now moving up alongside BMC Racing there on the inside in the red and black jerseys. It's the turquoise jerseys of Astana. They are pacing their man Vincenzo Nibali to the front end of the peloton. He's followed there by Jakob Fuglsang. Nibali sits well up in the overall standings. He's in 9th place. Fuglsang had a little bit of a difficult day through the mountains. He's in 18th place overall. He's 25 minutes back now. Now, there's a little bit of damage being done at the back of this group. On the front by Richie Porte. Andre Greipel not enjoying this nasty little climb here. Another rider starting to slip away is the Katusha rider, and that is Alexander Kristoff. So the sprinters still not enjoying the pace being set by the teams of the overall contenders.
These aren't the Pyrenees, they aren't the Alps, but they are viciously hard climbs in this area of the depot. But these climbs are really hard, Paul. And we're looking here as a 9 kilometer.
Phil, it's a beautiful place. But then these guys are going up this because this is full on, this is full gas. These guys are going up. See, you can see the work that's being done by Team Sky. It's just to discourage any of the other teams from making a move. It's not full on, but I would say they're riding at about 80 to 85% of their maximum, and everyone else is saying, well, this is quite hard today, especially after the day that we rode yesterday, and it's reflected with the speed, just over 12.5 miles an hour, 21 kilometers an hour being done by Richie Porte.
Yeah, we've gone inside 6 minutes now, a gap of 5 minutes 50 as we continue up this quite a long climb here to the summit. Steve Cummins is the rider with a 2-on-2 on his back, British rider on the MTN Quebec team.
My goal now is to
race clear for Thibaut Pinot, the 4th man in line there.
Yep, and that's the view of this climb. And by the way, rather interesting, the Cause de Sauveterre, that means it's taken from the word terre sauve, or safe ground. It was created by the monastery of Saint Enimia way back in the 13th century. At the top of this area, by the way, there's 60 hectares of sheep farming. 5 kilometers to go to the summit. Moving up as well, the riders from Europcar. The rider in the white sunglasses in second position there is Pierre Roland. He's also lost a fair bit of time in the overall stand. Oh, you can see the damage that's now starting to get done. Big old Marcel Seberg slipping away. I can also spot Edvald Bosenhagen, the Norwegian national champion, and that's all because of the work being done by Team Sky, and the majority of the work being done by Richie Porte. So some big names starting to slip away. Edvald Bosenhagen not enjoying the pressure. He's actually, I spoke to his team manager this morning, Dougie Ryder from South Africa. He said that a big Norwegian like Edvald Bosenhagen has not enjoyed the hot conditions of the last 2 or 3 days.
Heading up towards the summit now, as we still see FDJ set the pace at the front. Cavendish does have a teammate in this leading group, Rigoberto Urán. But his team manager said he's not sure how well he's going. He's had 2 very bad days so far in the Tour de France. But he may get inspired by the climb today. It's the light blue jersey with the white top there halfway up the line. There is Greg van Avermaet winning yesterday. And by the way, Paul, his wife is pregnant and they're not sure when the birth date is. If he wins 2 stages in a row, it could be imminent.
Well, he's been given permission by the team to leave if the birth is going to be imminent, but at the moment I think the way he's riding, he will take every day as it comes. Interesting though that the first and second place riders on yesterday's stage are in the breakaway on a day which theoretically doesn't suit their abilities, because they're the men for the short, sharp explosions. But this final climb of the day, I just feel that Van Avermaet and Peter Sagan, as they get closer to the finish, must be seriously starting to nurture the hopes of a little bit of a win.
Well, we're going up to the summit, and again nobody's challenged. The rider who set the pace all the way up, they're giving him the couple of points over the top. It's a second category climb. First 4 riders only score points there, and none affects the King of the Mountains leaderboard at the minute. Sagan, though, is safely with them over that one. Looking here now at a little bit of a move forward by Le Danu, went over the top in first place. He's continuing to press on. The boys behind, Grifko is the first man, followed by Bob Jongels in the back group. Here's the peloton over the top now. The boys in black won't be aware of quite what has happened up at the front just for the moment.
Well, the big question now, Phil, is just keep a close eye on the colour of Alberto Contador's bike in the main field as we go back to Michel Golas on the front here for Ethics Quickstep, because I noticed the bike is still on the car over the Tinkoff Saxo car of Alberto Contador, and rumour is that he's going to try and change to a lighter bike for the final climb of the day. He's obviously looking for a few seconds here and there.
Well, that's interesting. There is a weight limit on how light a bike can be, by the way, so all these bikes will have been weighed. As we're watching the peloton, still concentrating. They know their day is far from done. They still are going to attack each other, but when we get to that final climb, Golas is trying to loosen up the chase, make them chase and try and set it up for Roberto Urán to go on the last climb.
There's TJ Van Garderen in the BMC, and in fact he's wearing an aerodynamic skin suit today. He's not wearing the normal shorts and jersey. He obviously is looking for every little bit of an advantage he can find on today's stage. He's done so well throughout the whole of the opening days of the Tour de France to stay in second place in the overall standings, but he's only got a 17-second advantage over Nairo Quintana. That's why, even though these guys in the main field behind Phil are not racing for the stage victory, they're still racing for time, they're still racing for position on today's stage.
Well, I'm hearing that Contador has fitted lighter tyres on that bike that's on top of the team car, and if he feels the conditions are worth changing, but you know, that might be a bad gamble because the road surface is not good, and lighter tyres are more prone to explode. 5:22.
We'll have to keep a close eye on that as we go over the top of this second category climb. They do drop down a fraction now as they move away from that fourth category climb and they start to head into the small town of Bergen. There's a little bit of flat along a valley road. The risk that he would take it if he does change across to that bike that I've seen on the back of his team car there is that he might not get to the front end of the main field before the final climb of the day, but it's a risk that he will calculate, the team will calculate, and we'll see that a little later on. Looking now to the Ethics Quick Step rider, he's just looking now at the banner of 25 kilometers to go. At 25 kilometers to go now, you can see 54 kilometers an hour there for Michel Golas, looking a little bit further back down the main field. There's no urgency at all now for Team Sky. They're still keeping that tempo going. We will start to see an acceleration coming in this main peloton once we get that little bit closer to the final ascent of the day, and once they start to line up, I think it will start to speed up before we come to the fourth category climb, the Côte de Chabris. And that's when we'll see other teams coming forward to set the pace making. But there's not a lot of riders left in that group. We've seen a lot of riders tailed off over the previous second category climber, the Côte de Sauveterre. Golas, he was a winner last year in the King of the Mountains in the Tour of Beijing. He was also the Polish National Road Race Champion back in 2012. In fact, that was his only victory as a professional cyclist. He was second in the Polish National Championships this year, but he's one of the strong guys, and I do think that he's actually moved away like this. He's sacrificing his own chances to force the other riders in that group behind to chase him down, to try and set something up for Rigoberto Urán. Leans around every time he sees the corner. He moves across to the opposite side of the corner to line himself up for the apex, cuts across to keep his pace as high as possible. We saw him just a couple of moments ago at 55 kilometers an hour. We've had some very high speeds recorded in the Tour de France by some of the riders. 107 kilometers an hour the other day by Mark Renshaw, the Australian, the rider who very often is the lead-out man for Mark Cavendish. This is John Degenkolb, number 81. Just behind him, Gianpaolo Caruso. Also moving forward there, Danny Navarro. Navarro also in difficulty in the early part of this stage, trying to stay in contact. It was a very, very rapid start with an average speed in the second hour of the race of 47 kilometers an hour. There's the lone leader, Golas. Well, I still think, Phil, this is a move to entice the other riders in their breakaway to chase him down, to try and set something up for his man Rigoberto Urán. But you know, he is a pretty decent climber. He won the King of the Mountains in the Tour of Beijing.
He did, and he's taking no chances, taking a few risks going down there, because these roads in this area are very tortuous, and you can see now as they start the descent down here. Now this is going to be a very, very good race to the line now, and the sun has come out, and hey, the actual threat of rain appears to have gone away from the top of the climb at Mond as well, where we're sitting. These are very, very they remind me, Paul, of the roads in the Alpes down by Nice, because they're full of hazardous corners.
Yep, the tricky roads are hard surface as well, and they're not the easiest roads to ride on. They're quite nice if you're riding along at 10 to 15 kilometers an hour, but when you start to get up to 45 kilometers an hour, as we've seen, they are rather heavy roads. Team BMC, well, they're moving to the front, massing to the front now to look after their man, TJ Van Garderen. I'm sure he's thinking about the chances of being challenged by Nairo Quintana, who, as I said a little earlier, Phil, is only 17 seconds behind TJ Van Garderen at the moment. And TJ is dreaming of finishing on the podium.
So Golas, the former champion of his country, Poland, trying to be the carrot here, but they're starting to give him a gap. He's only got 20 seconds on those 19 chases, but the next climb is the small climb of the Côte de Chabris. We drove over that this morning, and it's amazing they only gave it a fourth category tag in the King of the Mountains, because it was a long, quite steep climb.
I think probably the most difficult thing about the climb is once you go over the top, there's a very tricky and technical descent, and once you start to get into the outskirts of Mons, there's a lot of traffic roundabouts, circles and traffic furniture in the middle of the road where you really do have to pay attention, which is why we see the overall. Well, there's an example of what you've got to face up to.
Oof, we just about got round there. Well, he skimmed off there. He used the parapet there as almost a banking on a velodrome to correct this corner, but he's taking these chances. He wants a gap.
I'm joined by Torsten Schmidt from the Katusha team. Torsten, you've got one of the pre-stage favourites, Joaquin Rodriguez. You tempted it all to put the team on the front and chase this breakaway?
No, we didn't do, and we will not do. We had two fantastic stages, and we also have to save some energy for the coming stages, for the coming week. It will be a tough week, and we went into the race. We had two guys in the first big breakaway, and then later on, nobody in the break. It's a little bit pity, but we cannot put every day the hammer down, and the guys also should a little bit safe, like I said before.
Looking now for 20 kilometers to go. A little move coming off the front again, and this is to be expected as well. We're going to see these counterattacks now. 20 kilometers to go for the leader, which is Michael Golash at the moment.
Well, the rider chasing him here is Christian Koren from Cannondale Garmin, and all of a sudden Thibaut Pinot is being forced to do the chasing down himself. He had a lot of teammates doing the pacemaking early on, and keeping a very close eye on him there is Jan Bakelants. A bit further back, Bo Jungels in the red, white and blue. 20 kilometers to go now for these riders. Still the one lone leader. Situation on the road is they're still trying to catch the lone leader who took off a little while back, Michel Golasse, and he's got a 23-second advantage. The main field, well, they have done nothing to eat into that breakaway advantage. It's still hovering on the 6-minute margin. Back with the leader, Golasse.
Hairpin bend, tense moments for the peloton. Rise of the back, just happy to continue to descent and let them all get on with it now. 22 seconds, the gap to the green jersey group, as they are calling it, which is Peter Sagan. And then we go back to 5:55. It is Sky, as it's been for so many days, versus Team BMC. Froome against TJ Van Garderen.
Yes, but sitting just 17 seconds behind TJ Van Garderen in the overall standings, Nairo Quintana and his own teammate just a few seconds behind him as well. So these guys have got to fight for position, Phil, coming into this final climb of the day, because things could change in the last kilometers of today's stage.
Cool cornering there. They're descending into the town of Balsiège now as we continue a long descent, as we're going into the valley of the Lot now, and the peloton are being led down all of the way by Team Sky. The gap is at 5:54. We're definitely going to see two races now, one for the stage win, and then the favourites hit out at each other on the climb to the finish today. This is the leader.
Michel Golasse, the Polish rider on Ethics Quickstep. He's just moving into the town of Bergen, and Bergen is the foot of the final, well, penultimate climb, the fourth category climb, the Côte de Chabris. He made the move on the climb, so he's feeling confident with his climbing ability, and he's also feeling confident, Phil, with the fact that he knows in the group behind he's got a very good climber, Rigobert Urán, who was high up in the overall standings until he had a couple of bad days in the Pyrenees. And I have to say, I think FDJ had tactically a superior advantage because of the numbers that they had in this group, but they seem to have got it all wrong because they haven't got the firepower to organise the chase.
This is Bob Jungels, the champion of Luxembourg, in his first Tour de France, this youngster, being seen as the next star from his little country of Luxembourg. Since we've lost now the services of Frank and Andy Schleck, the two great brothers, it looks like it's up to Bob Jungels now to take over the mantle.
Well, there's Chris Froome, but lining up right behind him once again, you've got Team BMC. The first rider there was Daniel Oss. His job is to make sure that TJ Van Garderen is well positioned coming to this final bend. And you know, the final corner at around about 4 kilometers to go for the start of the climb, it's so important to go around that corner probably in the top 10 positions, because the road becomes very, very narrow for the final climb of the day.
Hitting the 20-kilometre banner now for Team Sky and the rest of the Tour de France here. They're going through with a gap of 5 minutes and 46 seconds. Golash is really pushing on there. He's now pushed it up to 26 seconds over his other breakaway companions.
And the fact is, Phil, that 15 kilometres to go, Golash is doing a superb job here, and he realises, because of the size of the group behind, 19 men in that group behind, there's not a lot of consistency in the collaboration, and that could give him the advantage once he gets to the next climb, this nasty little fourth category climb, which I think is harder than its ranking, the Côte de Chapery. If he can consolidate there, well, then he's got a very good chance of creating the surprise. The Cannondale rider, Christian Coren, coming forward. And he realises now he can see the chance of a victory of the stage slipping away.
Well, Christian Coren was in the breakaway along with his teammate Andrew Talansky, who had so much bad luck when the breakaway is established. He had a flat tyre and had to slip away behind the race. And he would have been here, no doubt about that, but they were delighted. They still had this rider, Christian Coren, in the break, and he's decided to go alone here and see what can happen for himself. He's in the town of Bergen, and he's now trying to take off after Golash.
Well, I think he was concerned, Phil, and look at the gap that he's opened up already as he moves away from the small town of Bergen. I think he was concerned about the fact that there was no organisation in the chase behind Golash. So he said, right, well, forget about you lot, you're not working well together. I'm going to see if I can bridge the gap on this climb. He's got to bridge a gap of around about 23 to 26 seconds. Once they get over the top of this final climb of the day, they're looking at 9 kilometres to go to the finish.
Good for him. Anyway, you know, Paul, there are marked riders in this breakaway. They're all waiting to make a move, like Bardet or Thibaut Pinot, or even perhaps Sagan. And so that's how they make mistakes. Opportunists now put their move in.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, Richie Port going back to the team car, taking on board Drix, wondering whether or not he's expended all of his energy here this afternoon. I don't think so. I think he's just taking off. You see, because of the heat today, they've been given permission by the race organisation to go back to the team cars to take on board a few more drinks. He'll go up to the front of the main field very quickly and distribute all the drinks from the bar.
It's a little bit of a task to get from that black car at the back to his team at the front when you're climbing these slopes. It's amazing.
Well, it is, because when you take on board 4 bottles like that, Phil, you're looking at around about 2 kilos, which is close to 4 pounds, and it's not a lot of fun to carry the extra 4 pounds uphill.
Well, look at this. Christian Coren hasn't won a bike race since 2012, and that was a stage in the time trials of the Tour of Slovenia, which is his home race, and he's now trying to reach the leader.
Well, I think the big problem, Phil, looking at the third group on the road, this group has many riders who feel that they can win the stage. We talked about Romain Bardet, Thibaut Pinot, Jan Bakelants, Jungels, the young 23-year-old from Luxembourg, and of course Simon Yates, and they're all thinking about their chances of winning, so they don't want to use too much energy at this point, because they might need that energy in the last couple of kilometres, and that gives the advantage to the attackers in a situation like this.
Well, Christian Coren is now just 12 seconds behind the rider here, Golash. If those two get together away from that chase, they're going to have to rethink how they're going to do it. Just watch Richie Port here now. A little friendly push there by Mark Cavendish to his former teammate. He's not allowed to do that, by the way. Richie goes up the inside.
Well, Cavendish, Phil, looking rather good on the daylight today, because he's thinking about tomorrow. Once he gets to the next climb of the day, I think he may well just sit up to limit his losses on a day like this. But obviously, go Froome. Well, I think obviously Chris Froome very popular with his lead. But also, I'll tell you what, if these two riders get together, that could be rather interesting, because Coren is still, well, he's locked in at that 10-second deficit. He really has to give it all out now to try and make the junction before they start this 4th category climb.
And it's still not quick wheel change, but look at this. Here we come together at just over 11 kilometres to go. They've got 2 riders now at the front. And that's going to put all the pressure on Team FDJ, because they've done all the pacemaking but haven't allowed for this.
Well, the man in the green jersey of Cannondale, Garmin Coren, is a very good individual time trialist. He's a man who's got lots of firepower, so these two men need to combine their efforts. So, 2-man leading group now. As we pull back, we get a chance to see what the difference is between the 2 leaders and the remnants of the breakaway group that they were in. And it's not very more than 15 to 18 seconds. And on the back foot, on the defensive, is FDJ. Le Danu is doing the pacemaking with his teammate there. They were in that breakaway. They've done all of the work over the last few moments to try and set something up for Thibaut Pinot. 1.9 kilometers to go to the summit of this fourth category climb, the climb of the Côte de Chabris. Once they get over the top of that, they've got 13 seconds advantage over the remnants of the breakaway. But if they can get over the top of this climb with a 15 to 20 second advantage, they should drop down into Mende ahead of the rest of the race and start the climb ahead of the breakaway. FDJ, they've got to try and limit the advantage of the two leaders so that Thibaut Pinot can still maybe jump across a gap of 15 to 20 seconds on the final climb of the day.
Well, this is a very good move by Golash to draw the attention away from his teammate back there, Rigoberto Urán, who is a good climber, although he's had 2 bad days in the Tour de France.
Well, they're stretching out the elastic now because it was down to 13 seconds just a few moments ago, and as they come round the corner here, it's up to around about 17 or 18 seconds, and still the 3 riders from FDJ on the front, but this steady tempo is playing into the hands of Greg van Avermaet and Peter Sagan.
That's welcome to the Lozère region for Laurent Jalabert, who once won the climb up here and is now a television commentator, as we're watching the 2 riders up front, and it's beginning to hurt FDJ and nobody willing to help them. They're going to put it all on the line on the last climb, not this one.
Well, I'm sure once we get to the final climber, the first man who will have to attack is Thibaut Pinot, but you can just now see the youngster Yates in the white and lime green jersey of Orica Green Edge. He knows which wheel he wants to follow when we get down into Mende, and that's the wheel of Thibaut Pinot.
2 riders, a kilometre from the top of the climb, and more importantly perhaps, they are going to be shortly 10 kilometres from the end of the race, as Golash continues to ride here, even though he's been joined by Christian Coran of the Cannondale Garmin team. I think Cristiano is finding some new legs now. He's recovered from the chase. But well, look at the closing it down too.
And it's all because of the pacemaking being done at the front by the man who fell off in the early part of today's stage, Jeremy White. He's relayed every now and again by his teammate Le Danu, who in fact seems to have disappeared from the front here. He's become a spent force after all of the work that he's done so far. 6% is the gradient. Thibaut Pinot has moved right up there. Yates right on his wheel. The difference between these 2 leaders and the rest of the group is not much more than 12 seconds as Golash comes forward. He's relaying core, and these 2 riders are saying, oh, I wish this climb could be over with right now.
Well, Coran can't lift it anymore just now, and Jeremy Roy here, who is now 32 years of age, but he is such a solid leader of that team. Uses all his experience. He's not a bad climber. Once won the King of the Mountains in a 2-day stage race, the Critérium International in France.
Well, Coran is a rider who came to the front in the lime green jersey. The pullback here gives us an idea whether or not Jeremy White's got the firepower left, and you can see they're really struggling to nail back that gap. Thibaut Pinot, he has to be patient. He has to wait till the steep part of the final climb of the day if he's beginning to dream of a stage victory for France. Alberto Contador, you can see him out of the saddle there in the yellow jersey. He obviously has not made a move to change his bike, I think, because he thought it was too precarious.
But the launching, it might well be the professional on the Lotto team here. They're looking over the... Oh, sorry, it's Cofidis. The rider I was thinking of was Nicolas Eden, I think it is, as he starts to get away. Now, he's a pretty good climber, this man, and he's taking his chance, but don't forget, he's in the main field at 5:53. He's not going to catch up now.
No.
A nice catch there by Christian Coran. As we're heading up to the summit, a 1/3 of a kilometre remains. This is the chase group. They can see the action ahead of them. Good tactics here, Jens Voigt now. I think they played a good card, ethics, but it may backfire. What do you think?
Well, they're definitely going to use these 2 riders to the maximum, and they're not going to have any chance of going getting a good place here. So they put all their eggs in that one basket, Bruno Thibaut, and hopefully for them it works out. It looks like them 2 not gonna make it. But it's a fast descent going down here. It's a large road, good surface, and they reach, depending on the wind, they reach up to 45 miles an hour. So it's a fast descent, and from the top of this climb, they're going to be basically in 2.5 minutes. They're going to be on the bottom of that next climb already.
Yeah, but Jens, I'm just thinking back. You keep discounting Peter Sagan. As we can see, this steady pace is playing into the hands of Peter Sagan as far as I'm concerned. And if you remember, everybody thought in the Amgen Tour of California, when we went up Mount Baldy, that Peter Sagan was going to get blown away. Well, he hung on, and today's climb is a little bit shorter. So I think Peter Sagan, with this steady tempo they're hitting the climbs, might have a chance.
Well, he might have a chance, but Tour of California was different setup, different situation. Here, there's actually some really good climbers in this group. So, I mean, going up against Bruno Thibault and Romain Bardet into form shape, it's a different story again. So, I still would go, it favors the climbers.
Well, we're not far away to finding out all of the answers here. Go the French was the banner we've just seen, and they'll be looking for Bardet and for Pinot. It's Karan who's gone over the top for the only point in the King of the Mountains, doesn't need it. 8.4 kilometers to go. Now we're going to race down into the valley. We're going to get a lovely view of Mende itself, and then we'll race right across this beautiful town, and the climb will start right in the center of the town itself.
We're into the town of Mende here. We're at 5 kilometers to go. That's around about 1.5 kilometers from the start of the climb. And they've prized open a few more seconds. It's 13 seconds, according to the race radio.
We're racing in, and we're looking across at the Cathedral of Our Lady and Saint-Privat as they race it through these narrow streets now. They look okay now. All the cars have been taken away. And we'll flick to the right. There's a beautiful view. It's built at 1368, that makes it 14th century.
Well, in fact, Phil, it took 99 years to build that church. Rodriguez there, the man who is wearing the polka dot jersey, I'm not sure that he's cracked in a situation like this, Phil. I think he's sitting up and thinking further down the road. It's a question now of conserving energy for the final week of the Tour de France, especially if you think that you're not going to win the stage.
That's all the Tour de France. He's dropped away now. He's not going to catch up with these light riders up front today. Nobody is. It's a question of which one will win. And then we're going to see Chris Froome under pressure. We are coming in at 4.6 kilometers here. We are in the town of Mende. We make a little right flick here, then a left one. We're on the climb. There it is. This is the climb of only 3 kilometers. The finish is not at the top. We run over, small descent, onto the airfield for a sprint. And it's Golash and Karan get there first. These are the chasers. They're now on as well, and it's still Française de Jeu, but Paul, they're going to have to go early, and Thibault Pinot is going to have to make a move.
Well, they've got to move very, very quickly. I love the way you said there's only 3 kilometers long, this climb. It's a beast of a climb as far as I'm concerned. Bear in mind how much these guys have raced over 14 days. The climb is at 10 to 10.9% gradient, and that's why I still feel that FDJ have made a tactical error here, making all of the pacemaking. And look there at Peter Sagan in the green jersey, still sitting there, hoping to survive. And if they ride at a steady pace, he's the kind of guy who, for the effort here of an 8 or 9 minute effort on the slopes of this climb, he could still stay in contact.
Well, he felt he let the team down by losing the stage yesterday, but the man who beat him is sat right behind him in that red and black jersey down there. That's Greg Van Avermaet, and he's in a game with a chance of 2 days, 2 wins.
Moving up there into 4th position is Simon Yates of Orica Greenwich. Behind him, Rigoberto Urán behind him in the red and black jersey. The man who won the stage yesterday, Greg Van Avermaet, and riding this steady tempo, I feel, is playing into the hands of the stronger riders. They need to change the tempo. They need to go out and attack one at a time to try and dislodge guys like Sagan, Van Avermaet.
Well, whenever they keep the speed steady, it plays in the hands of Sagan, because that's what he needs. If they want to drop Sagan, it's got to be a constant change of rhythm. Attack, slow down, attack, slow down. And I don't see that happening yet. So Sagan's sitting comfortably there on 3rd position. And I mean, if Thibault wants to go, he should make his move soon. Because don't forget, there's 1.5 kilometers flat and slightly downhill. So Sagan can come back on him.
Sorry, Renz, I'll have to jump in because exactly what you predicted has just happened. It looks like it's Bardet who's put a move in down there. Now, Sagan will not be able to lift his pace. I don't think Christian Karan's been swamped here by the move.
Well, it is Romain Bardet. He's been sitting comfortably in that leading group of 20 riders all throughout the day. He's had a teammate alongside him, Jan Bakelands, and these are the changes of tempo that a rider like Peter Sagan will not enjoy. You know, this man finished in 6th place overall in the Tour de France, and he's now getting into a very, very interesting climbing movement. Just coming along there, you can see Simon Yates just a little bit further back.
Well, it's the move we expected. This is the man gaining most in this breakaway. He started the day 17 minutes behind. At the moment, he's gaining 5 of those back. He's really turned his form around in the last few days. He won at Pralou in the Dauphiné, and we go there in a couple of days' time in the Tour de France. Now he's spread eagle the group.
Watch out for the rider from IAM Cycling, because he's a Colombian rider who hails from a very good country which produces some of the great climbers of the world. That's Jarlinson Pantano.
But listen, that break has caught Pinot on one leg here. The whole team were working for him, and he can't answer the attack by Bardet. But others can, and so too can Simon Yates here, who has joined him.
2 Colombian riders in the group. Rigoberto Urán has got in there with Pantano, but also just getting onto the back there is the other AG2R rider, Jan Bakelants.
And Bakelants was 3rd up the hill into Rodez yesterday. The first 3 finishers are in this breakaway. As we're watching now, Sagan, the acceleration has done exactly what Jens Voigt said. It weakens him. As a non-climber, he can't answer to the acceleration. And this is Gautier who's going clear now.
That was Gautier, but Romain Bardet says, mate, you're not having any of this afternoon. I'm the climber in this group, and I want to make the difference. And he gets out of the saddle, but Simon Yates is responding behind. Let's not forget, Simon Yates, the best young rider this year in the Criterium de Dauphiné, which is a big reference race as preparation for the Tour de France.
And he went head-to-head with Bardet, because Bardet won the stage at Pralou. Now, Yates here is trying to give a victory to Orica Green Edge, who've been probably the unluckiest team of the Tour. Only got 6 riders left. Michael Matthews was dropped at the start of this climb, by the way, and we're now watching to see how they can reshape. But this constant stop-go will hurt Sagan.
Well, Pinot has now been put on the back foot. He's a rider from FDJ who needs to respond. He sacrificed his teammates to chase down all of the moves this afternoon, and now he's on the back foot. He's got Rigoberto Urán just up alongside him. Romain Bardet, 6th overall in the Tour de France last year, is the rider looking over his shoulder into the eye spill of Simon Yates. It's a good job he's got sunglasses on, because he won't be able to see any of the feeling that Simon Yates is going through currently.
Well, this is a big move by Yates, and Bardet knows all about Simon Yates here. Meanwhile, let's not forget the second race. The race for the yellow jersey is about to start as they get onto the climb. 3 kilometers to the top. Sky are still in control, but did you notice there, just behind the white jersey, was Quintana? He's waiting. His team has said he will attack.
It's so complicated to cover this, because we've got 2 races, the race for the stage, and Romain Bardet wants this, and he's got a gap now between himself and Simon Yates. He's opening up the gap, but once you get to the top of this climb, it's not over. You've still got 1.5 kilometers to go. It's a long, long way. Yates looks like he's got a slight gap, but he could maybe recover.
Let's hope so, but Bardet has kept the pressure on there. That's hurt Simon Yates. He's just to the right of our picture. Pinot, it may be climbing his way. He's slow to start, but getting himself back into a rhythm. 11% on this section of the climb now as we watch Bardet. He's trying to put all matters to rights here, this youngster, if he can.
Well, Bardet, 24 years of age, he's got the gap. It's a bit deceptive when you see the gaps on the slopes of a climb like this, because you're looking at almost 11.5% the gradient. I would say that Bardet looks quite comfortable here. He's got the ability to open up a slightly bigger advantage so as he gets to the top of this climb. But looking back now, there are starting to become reinforcements for Simon Yates. Rigoberto Urán has come up, but the group behind Phil, further down the road, has really dramatically reduced in numbers.
The face licking his lips there, TJ Van Garderen on the right of our picture. He's riding on the wheel of Vincenzo Nibali, but all of the contenders are locked together there. This is Bardet, finished 6th in the Tour de France last year. That's why they thought this year he'd be a contender to win, but he's had so much bad luck. Now it looks as though Yates is in trouble here.
Chasing the lone leader, Romain Bardet, is in 2nd position on the road. The rider there in the Ethics Quick-Step blue and white jersey is Rigoberto Urán. He's actually giving a bit of assistance to Thibaut Pinot, who does not look comfortable. The style that he's using there is just showing that he's having to use the top part of his body to get the pedals over.
1 kilometer to go to the summit. Second at the kilometre will be Pinot, followed by Uran, or the other way around, as we're watching. The gap is at 4:43, but time is of little importance now. This rider going for the stage win.
You might have noticed there, Roman Kreuziger was the rider at the front for Tinkoff Saxo, setting the pacemaking, but Alejandro Valverde had moved to the front end of the main group of contenders. But Roman Bardet looks over his shoulder. He's trying to see what sort of move he can make. Villermoz at the back. In fact, another rider in difficulty, number 82, is Warren Barguil. Quintana makes a move here, though.
Well, he said he would, and now he's going to have to see the reaction from the others. On the right is Nibali, and it's Valverde who's marking Nibali, and there's a little bit of delay from Froome.
Well, they were all looking at Froome, Phil. They were looking to see, is Froome going to respond in a situation like this? And Nibali said, well, Froome is not responding, so I'm going. Alejandro Valverde has said the same. He's moved across, and Froome has no more teammates left in this group. He's going to have to do all of the pacemaking himself.
And Contador is sitting on Froome and not coming by. He's allowing these three to go first, and it's Nibali, Quintana, Valverde, and Contador on Froome's wheel is making Froome chase them down.
Right behind TJ Van Garderen is staying in contact as well. He's on the wheel of Alberto Contador. This is a great battle. It's a pity we're not battling out for the stage victory, because these are all the men who are at the top of the overall standings, the heads of state of this year's Tour de France, while further up the road, trying to make himself a name for France, is Roman Bardet. He's still got a slight advantage. We're looking a little bit further back now, Phil.
Roman Bardet
Steve Cummings is riding back up into third position, I think.
Well, they're all going. This looks like Pinot just here as we come up.
Well, Steve Cummings, Phil, is riding up to Pinot, so that's an amazing performance by Cummings. There is Bardet. He's looking at the King of the Mountains point over the top there. Pinot has moved into second place. Steve Cummings is riding himself up into third place on the stage.
Well, two French riders topped the last climb of the day. Bardet, Pinot, and then it's the British rider Cummings riding for MTN Quebec. Meanwhile, down the slope, 4 minutes back, it is still Quintana in white trying to destroy or get back a few seconds on the yellow jersey. TJ Van Garderen here is being put under pressure and is lagging a little bit.
Well, bear in mind, TJ Van Garderen's advantage over Quintana at the start of the day, Phil, was 17 seconds. Pinot has made the junction at the front as Bardet looks over his shoulder. Two Frenchmen in the lead.
This has been a remarkable recovery by Thibaut Pinot. Remember, he crashed at the start today. He's now getting to what is the easy approach to the line. The hill is done for. We go down and come out, and Bardet may not be able to outsprint Thibaut Pinot. Now, still this little man here from Colombia is not pulling away, and the constant cadence of Froome is bringing them back.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, he's put Vincenzo Nibali, number one, into difficulty there. He keeps looking down at his gears, and that's always a bad sign. You wonder if you're in the wrong gear. Sorry, mate, I'm having a hard time here this afternoon. But Froome is riding his race. He's just trying to ride himself back. You might have just seen that little hand signal coming from Thibaut Pinot, number 21. He was saying to Bardet, come up forward, mate. You've got to work together, because if we don't collaborate here, we'll get caught by riders coming back from behind. I'll tell you what, Phil, you cannot write fairy tales like that. He came off at the very last moment to get onto the back, and that was a fantastic performance for MTN Quebec. Further down the slopes, though, there's a massive big battle on. Nairo Quintana could be riding up into second place in the overall standings. Alberto Contador, number 41, is on the back foot a little bit here. He's got ahead of him Chris Froome and Nairo Quintana. TJ Van Garderen started the day with a 17-second advantage over Quintana, and he's trying to ride himself back into this race to hold on to a podium position. But, you know, this is a man who's got a very large diesel engine. Once it gets going, he's able to keep it going for a long period of time. Quintana and Froome, Phil, just like it was back in 2013.
And this is Alberto Contador here as he goes to the crowds. TJ Van Garderen behind now, Vincenzo Nibali. This is a small hill when you compare it with the Pyrenees or the Alps to come, but it is doing damage amongst the leaderboard of the Tour de France. Froome has hooked up now with Quintana, who has gone again. Chris Froome looks up, sees him move, then he looks down and just concentrates on his cadence.
Well, this is the special thing about real climbers, Phil. They can attack and attack again multiple times, and that's exactly what Nairo Quintana has done. A little further down the road, you've got two great champions there, locked together, Alejandro Valverde, and of course joined there by Alberto Contador, side by side. Contador seems to be struggling, but I tell you what, I still think that Alejandro Valverde is riding a great Tour de France this year, and he is ahead of TJ Van Garderen on the road, and he was behind him at the start of the day. Valverde could also be climbing a lot higher up in the overall standings. Van Garderen needs to find his rhythm. These two riders looking back now to see what sort of damage has been done. Quintana needs to continue. Froome has controlled all of the attacks here of everybody, and he's had to pull himself inside outfield to stay with Nairo Quintana.
Well, Quintana needs 17 seconds. There's no bonuses this far down the race. He needs 17 real seconds to go ahead of TJ Van Garderen in the overall classification. He's got the yellow jersey locked on. No time gains at the moment. As we look here, Valverde, who's joined the back wheel, has jumped Alberto Contador. Contador's got to react to that one, otherwise he'll lose a few more seconds to the man who's already ahead of him in the overall. And this is TJ Van Garderen limiting his losses.
Well, I'll tell you what, also Alejandro Valverde is looking at that third place finish in the overall standings. If he can, he knows he's got to get time over TJ Van Garderen. That's why he's made that very aggressive move there. These are the two big names of the Tour de France this year. The white jersey, the leader of the best young rider competition, Quintana, followed by Froome. We're looking now here to see Alejandro Valverde is coming back.
Well, he's got to gain over a minute on TJ. That will not happen at the moment. But those two up front are doing big damage here, because Quintana tonight is going to move into second place overall in the Tour de France if he maintains this run to the line. And that could be why he's prepared to work here and not worry about the yellow jersey, because Froome has mastered him. Now he wants time, enough time, to get second overall in the Tour. He swings onto the airfield, a left turn, and he'll soon be across the finishing line.
Look at the difference in styles of these two riders. The slightly built Colombian climber, Nairo Quintana, but followed by the gangly position of Chris Froome. But these two men, Phil, they're actually starting to show us that the last week of the Tour de France is going to be some incredible battles once we go up into the high spots of the Alps. And now Valverde is not too far behind these two.
17 seconds is the gap between Van Garderen and Quintana, so the clock will start as soon as Quintana hits the line. Froome will not lie down even when he's sprinting for lowly places like this. He wants to hammer home a point, and if he don't keep tight on his wheel, Froome will steal a second on the line. And I think they'll have to give him a second for that. It all depends on if it is a whole second. The clock has now started there on the line.
Well, looking down that finishing straight, Phil, I think the 17 seconds is going to disappear here this afternoon. Valverde came in there superbly, I think, with Quintana. Alberto Contador is in, but what is the time now? TJ Van Garderen is in the finishing straight, but I think he's going to drop down a place tonight.
He's literally fighting for every second. It won't keep him in second place overall. He will go down to third as Nibali comes over the line. It is TJ Van Garderen in the distance here as he hits the line, and he will drop to third overall in the Tour de France tonight. What an incredible last climb, but we did promise you it would be.
Due to the number of cars around, it's the evening time.
This is the riders. This is Robert Hessing coming in now.
A lot more cars on the roads as people are driving home from work.
Well, what a battle. Two great races going on there. A battle for the individual stage this afternoon. There's Sammy Sanchez coming up to the finishing line. There's Warren Barguil. He had a difficult day today. Not surprising. He's had pretty hard opening couple of days at the Tour de France, but he's still hanging in there tough. He was 11th overall at the start of today, but what a day that is seen. What a day for Mandela Day, when the day that Etienne Kubeka donned orange jerseys in support of Madiba, they came up with the stage victory. And there is confirmation. Cummings for Great Britain and for Etienne Kubeka, representing the continent of Africa, has got himself the victory, 2 seconds ahead of Thibaut Pinot. Romain Bardet in third place at 3 seconds. Uran in fourth. Peter Sagan in fifth place. He's going to get himself some points on a mountaintop finish. Well done, Peter, for that.
Okay, so there is 1 segment about 15 kilometers from now. You see the orange band on the snow hill.
Commentary said this is still talking.
Well, I'm not sure. I think we might have just lost the interview there with Steve Cummings, but what a brilliant day, Phil. You have to admit, he himself was just starting to say that he knew he wasn't the best climber in that group of riders, but he had to bide his time. And brilliant day, really, for the day when everybody's celebrating Mandela Day.
Yes, well, he got a silver medal in the Olympic Games team pursuit way back in 04. As we look here now at the new overall leaderboard, Paul Quintana got enough time to leapfrog Van Garderen. Valverde in 4th, he leaps Flog Contador, and Geraint Thomas goes down into 6th place. Small hill doing all that damage.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of racing to go. And of course, let's not forget, this is an aerodrome, so not surprising at all to see all the helicopters down there. I'm presuming that is a helicopter from Monsieur François Hollande, the President of France, who was on board for what ended up being a fantastic battle today for the victory of the stage and also for a readjustment at the top end of the overall standings. Nairo Quintana, well, he really enjoyed the gradient of this climb, and I think, Phil, what it says is these boys are not finished with their racing to try and win the Tour de France this year, because Quintana and Valverde, I think, can be very, very dangerous.
Stage 15 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you. And for the sprinters, it's Valence, then Paris. But to be in contention today, there's a lot of climbing to overcome. The breakaway senses another opportunity. Stage 15, through the massive Centrale, they depart Mende and make their way through to Valence. It's 183 kilometres, and it starts with a gruelling Category 3 climb. The riders will be warming up before the race gets underway. 2 Category 4 climbs, and then a Category 2 climb that comes with 50 kilometres to go through to the finish. Warm conditions once again at the start. The temperature's already up into the low to mid-30s. 172 riders on the start line as Rodriguez, affectionately known as Purito, wears the King of the Mountains jersey. As Chris Froome, although he leads that classification, he has the yellow jersey. A very fast start to the race. At one point we had a breakaway group of 27 riders. The average speed has been in the low 40s. That group has since split, and we're now down to a very select group of 9 riders off the fronts. Thibaut Pinot is here once again, number 21 for the FDJ squad, the man who was second on the stage yesterday. This is Lars back at the rear of the group. There are 2 riders in the move for NX Quickstep, number 117, that's Matteo Trentin, along with the world champion Michael Kwiatkowski. Lars Back is there for the Lotto Soudal team, Simon Geschke for Giant Alpecin, and for Tinkoff Saxo, Michael Rogers is there. And so too is the green jersey. Peter Sagan has made it into the move once again, just as he did 24 hours ago. The peloton at 1 minute and 32 seconds behind, and you can see for yourself, the picture tells the story. They're moving. So too is the leading group. Ryder Hagedal in the green colours for Cannondale Garmin. Good to see him make the split today. 32 degrees at the finish line, and already feels warmer than that. It's Adam Yates in the breakaway today. It was Simon Yates we saw in the move yesterday for the Orica Green Edge team. Simon finished in 10th position on yesterday's stage, and he looked to be in the running for a little while. He just overcooked the motor a little bit too soon on that climb, trying to maintain the pace of Romain Bardet. Number 11, Jean-Christophe Perrault. He's at 4 minutes and 19 seconds down on the road. And he's in a group that includes Mark Cavendish. Not a position that he's accustomed to, but that horrible crash that he had 2 days ago now, he's still clearly feeling the after effects of that fall. The man who finished in 2nd position overall at the Tour last year. This is Cavendish, number 112. He's got 2 teammates for company and a compatriot from the Isle of Man, Peter Kenyak, the British national champion, is also in this group that are fighting for survival in the Tour today. The large peloton is in front of them. This is a group of just 11 riders. There's still 126 kilometres. And there is the genuine risk of those riders being outside the time delay and getting eliminated from the race. We started with 172 riders on the start line today. We're now down to 171 riders still in the race. Sebastian Langevel, the Dutchman from Canada Garmin, has abandoned due to illness. But this guy's not abandoning. Maybe we change his name from John Christophe Perrault to John Tough Perrault. And Jeremy Waugh, also sporting plenty of bandages. He crashed yesterday, Jeremy Waugh. That was the rider in the white colours of FDJ. You would have seen quite a bit of Jeremy Waugh on yesterday's stage. Now, he was in the breakaway for the FDJ team, one of 3 riders from that squad in yesterday's move. And he fell, I should say, within the first 5 kilometres of yesterday's stage, but still picked himself up and got in the break. Katusha, they didn't chase yesterday on a stage that suited Rodriguez. They've missed the move today, and now they're chasing. At one point, however, they were at the front of the race. They had Rodriguez in the initial breakaway today, so they'll be disappointed that he somehow missed the split. So they're now all on the front doing the chasing. Ryder Hejjedal, Canadian at the back of the group. One of 2 Canadians in the race, the only Canadian to have won a Grand Tour, one of the big 3, the tours of Italy, France and Spain. He won the Giro d'Italia 3 years ago when he beat Joaquim Rodriguez, who is the rider from Katusha that's initiated the chase from the main peloton, but they're losing ground. It's out to 1 minute and 49 seconds, and they're not getting any support. Despite the fact there's still 121 kilometres remaining, the quality of that leading group of 9 riders gives them every opportunity to make it all the way through the finish, unless another team comes to the front to assist the Russian outfit of Katusha. Thibaut Pinot bouncing back, licking the wounds of what has been a disappointing tour so far. Trying to eavesdrop on the conversation here with Yvonne Matteo, the sports director from FDJ. There's a Category 2 climb that tops out on today's stage with 50 kilometres remaining. It's a climb of almost 8 kilometres in length with an average gradient of almost 6%. For Thibaut Pinot to win this stage, he has to attack on that climb. He cannot possibly win the stage if he comes into the finish with the likes of Peter Sagan and also Matteo Trentin in a sprint finish. Against those guys who are amongst some of the quickest in the world, a climber of the ilk of Thibaut Pinot can't possibly beat them. So it's going to make for a very entertaining day. He's going to need to go long range. He's got Michael Rogers with him for support, and Michael Rogers will try and limit the losses on that climb and then reel it all back in. The hero of the day yesterday, Steve Cummings, now marks himself down as a winner at the Tour de France. And you can see the little logo that he's got on the side of his helmet there. That's for the Quebec organisation, and it's the big logo on the back of his jersey. Him also showing that logo with his own celebration, holding up the 5 fingers for the Quebec organisation, raising funds throughout this year's Tour de France to try and provide some 5,000 bikes to school kids in South Africa. More than 500,000 school kids in South Africa spend an hour each way walking to school. It's 2 hours on foot to get to and from school each day. When they've got a bike, attendance rate increased by more than 25%. Into the department of the Ardèche. It is a warm part of the country at this time of year. And welcome to the mountains of the Ardèche. We return to the breakaway group. With Adam Yates taking on the fluids at the back, it's going to be a big task to stay hydrated throughout today's stage. On the stage in Rodez, which was the warmest stage that we've seen so far, that was the day where we saw Greg Van Avermaet just get the better of Peter Sagan. Another second place finish for Peter Sagan. On that day, Richie Porte consumed 14 water bottles. Almost impossible under these sorts of conditions to stay hydrated. Tempers flared a little bit yesterday within Team Sky, and that is perfectly understandable. We've heard about Richie Port being punched in the ribs on stage 10 it was, the first stage in the Pyrenees. He got punched in the ribs with 3 kilometres remaining. Yesterday, Chris Froome reported that he had a cup of urine thrown at him at about 50 kilometres to go on the stage, as we look at Adam Hansen off to the left-hand side of the screen. And then also, we've seen footage of one of the other riders from that team, Luke Rowe.
Hi, welcome on Radio Tour from race direction car number 2, just behind the pack. We were expecting a sprinter stage today, but it's been hectic ever since the start. The average speed after 1 hour, 47.4 kilometers an hour, and riders have been dropped. The Cavendish group is way behind the pack, close to 2 minutes. Not sure they will manage to get back into the pack. The heat is on as well. It's 27.5 degrees as I speak. Better than yesterday, but still very hot on the peloton of the Tour de France.
Still Katusha on the front setting the pace, but it's at 1 minute 50 seconds now, the advantage for the 9 leaders. It's quite a contrast, the quality of the breakaway once we get into the 3rd week of racing versus the quality of the breakaway within the 1st week of racing. The opening week on the stages for the sprinters. Listen, it's normally the teams from the Wild Cup presented in the breakaway, but this is an extraordinary move off the front. Ryder Hagedal in the green colours coming through now, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia. Thibaut Pinot in the white colours, 3rd at last year's Tour de France. The reigning world champion is in the move, Michael Kwiatkowski. Lars Bak in the red jersey from Lotto Soudal. He's a former winner of a stage at the Giro d'Italia as well. Michael Rogers in the move, 3 times world individual time trial champion. Peter Sagan barely needs an introduction. For the last 3 years, the winner of the green jersey. This is a high-class breakaway. Adam Yates is in the move as well, and he's been a winner of the Tour of Turkey, 6th last year at the Criterium de Dauphiné, 5th at the Tour of California. So this is one of the best moves we've seen throughout the race, and it will be a big task for Katusha to try and reel them back in. They are on to the next climb of the day, the Col d'Aves. This is a Category 4 climb. It's 2.6 with an average grading of 4.4%. No interest in this group in terms of the King of the Mountains classification, but for Peter Sagan in that green jersey, he's already got a 61-point buffer on his nearest rival, Andre Greipel. There is an intermediate sprint with 75 kilometres still to go on the stage. Another 20 points up for grabs there for Peter Sagan. And then there's the stage finish itself. The beautiful department of the Ardèche that they ride through today. The Orica Green Edge car moving up to the breakaway. Had an opportunity to speak with Matt White this morning, the #1 director for the Orica Green Edge team. And he said there is no chance of the race coming down to a day for the sprinters today. It would certainly be a breakaway that would win the stage. And he was keen to get either Adam Yates in the break or Peter winning the Dutchman. Well, he got Adam Yates in the move, the young Brit. There's the official start of the climb. 2.6 kilometres to go. Then they get over the top of this one, and there's virtually no descent at all. And then they start the next climb of the day, another Category 4 climb. But what a race it has been for that team. And to win yesterday, on the day where South Africa celebrated the birth of the late Nelson Mandela, seems so fitting. Team Sky in the black colours. Today, as they warmed up before the start of the stage, despite the fact that it's around about 32 degrees at the moment, they did need to warm up because the stage started with a Category 3 climb. As they warmed up out the front of their team bus, there were 6 gendarmes providing security for them after all the drama that we've seen over the last couple of stages. Not often that Chris Froome shows much emotion, but he certainly showed plenty of emotion yesterday. Alberto Contador from the Tinkoff Saxo team, it looked as if he might have been heading towards the front to let everybody else know that he was going off to the side for a nature break.
and he's the key.
Well, Thibaut Pinot, after finishing second on the stage yesterday, the man in the white colours from FDJ, he said there were no positives to take out of the day. Second, after all the work that was done by his teammates, Matthew Ladanu and Jeremy Weil, it's a complete waste. They were his words as he was not too happy with his own performance and letting that opportunity slip through his fingers. He and Romain Bardet, they really played the game between themselves. They completely lost track of the fact that Steve Cummings was on his way back. Rodriguez himself now going to the front. Not often you see the team leader go to the front to contribute to the chasing. Spotted that flag off to the right-hand side. A tailwind at this point on the climb, which is good news for the breakaway group of 9. No threats in this group to the yellow jersey. The all is Thibaut Pinot in 17th position at 30 minutes and 57 seconds down. Mum being a little cautious, and rightly so, just holding the kids back on the side of the road. The red colours off to the left as it looks like Rodriguez is not going to the front to contribute to the chasing. He's going to the front to let everybody in the peloton know, okay, we've tried, we didn't get any support, so we're stopping. If you want to bring the break back, you contribute to the chasing. It's extraordinary how well Peter Sagan climbs. This year he went out the winner of the Tour of California, which has got some serious climbs on it. Almost over the top of the Col de Bez. This is a Category 4 climb. There's only 1 point up for grabs in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. And Thibaut Pinot, the Frenchman, will collect it. Rogers across the top in second position. It's then Kwiatkowski, the world champion, followed by Sagan, Yates, Geschke, Trentin, back, and then Hagedal at the rear of the group. Breakaway of 9 will certainly like the news that's coming back to them from the peloton, with Katusha shutting down the engine and deciding not to do the chasing. Katusha played a pretty clear card on yesterday's stage. They actually stated before the start to anybody that was prepared to listen that they weren't going to chase. Rodriguez has already won 2 stages. They were just going to let the race unfold and see what happens. And if Rodriguez was in with a chance approaching the last climb, then they'd contribute to trying to put him in a position to win stage number 3. But that wasn't the case. So Katusha, they did not chase at all yesterday. And as soon as they got to the bottom of the final climb, Rodriguez, he just simply rode tempo, saving his energy for another opportunity. He was in the original breakaway today, which was a huge group of 27. That has since split down to our select 9 off the front. Rodriguez now will have to save himself for the Alps. So don't be surprised if we see Rodriguez and the rest of the Katusha team fairly soon heading towards the rear end of the peloton and saving themselves for tomorrow's stage into Gap. Tyler Farrar also in this group. The American sprinter from MTM Quebec sits just in front of Mark Cavendish. He won a wonderful stage in the Tour de France in 2011, just about 6 weeks after his close friend Walter Wayland passed away. And when Tyler Farrar went across the finish line, he made the W symbol for Walter. It was an emotional day for Tyler Farrar. A tough day for Jean-Christophe Perrault. This is a Category 4 climb, and this is an enormous crowd. And the large majority of them are so well behaved. Such unfortunate incidents from a minority yesterday with the urine that was thrown at Chris Froome, the fact that Richie Porte was abused on the side of the road once again, added to the punch that he received on stage 10 on the final climb, our first day in the Pyrenees. Luke Rowe had somebody grab the back of his bike and pull him to a grinding halt on that last climb. Sky have really been in the targets of a few of the disgruntled public. Today in the breakaway for Orica Green Edge. Yesterday it was Simon Yates. Simon said he simply didn't have the legs. I wonder if it was more to do with a lack of experience yesterday for Simon Yates. The Yates twins, they're only 22 years of age. I'd dearly love to know what would have happened to Simon Yates if he had followed the strategy of Steve Cummings, and in fact just followed Steve Cummings. Cummings said he knew the climb really well, having raced up it a few times at Paris-Nice, and he wasn't capable of climbing with Bardet and Pinot, so he just had to stay really close to that red zone. Tease, flirt with the red zone, but not quite go into it, and then see if he could fight his way back, which is exactly what he did. Yates, rush of blood, big crowd, opportunity perhaps to win a stage. He tried to go with Romain Bardet, a man who finished 6th in the Tour de France last year, went into the red zone, paid the price, cracked and finished in 10th position, but a good result nonetheless and a learning experience. The good news for the grimacing Jean-Christophe Perrault is that the peloton is easing up, and that gives them a chance to reintegrate. Well, I did say that there was no descent before they move on to the next one. The Col de la Croix de Bouzon they move on to now. Short climb at just 1.3 kilometres, and then it is a long descent down to Albany for the intermediate sprint, where Peter Sagan will move his lead out towards the 80-point advantage. You can see Raoul Dennis once again, the rider in the BMC colours, with the black nicks on, different to all the other riders from the BMC team, and he's spending so much of this tour out of the saddle. He's got some serious saddle sores, which is why he's wearing different nicks to the rest of the team. Slightly different shape to the chamois, a little more comfortable. Maybe he needs a little bit of the Robbie McEwen butt cream that the former Australian great produces to reduce a little bit of that saddle sore.
I have paused. Well, that's okay.
Watch out for number 117 from edX Quickstep. That's Matteo Trentin. He's the rider who actually gave his bike to Tony Martin on stage 4 when Tony Martin went on to win the stage. But Matteo Trentin is a cagey rider. He's very shrewd. He's only won 3 races in his career. The stage at the Tour de Suisse and 2 stages in the Tour de France. His first one came in a breakaway into Lyon in his first attempt at the Tour de France. And it was his first ever professional win. It was for a big breakaway group, and he beat Michael Albertini of Orica Green Edge. His second stage win came last year, and that was at the Tour de France on a stage where he beat Peter Sagan in a sprint finish. So the guy's quick, and he knows how to read a race. He's in the right breakaway. So if this group was to come to the line, it's no foregone conclusion that it would be a Peter Sagan win. Michael Rogers at the front of this group, driving the tempo. Stage winner last year into Bagnères de Longchamp. And he's 10th attempt at the Tour de France. He finally got a stage victory, and he appropriately so bowed as he went across the line. There is Chris Froome, with the Spanish national champion Alejandro Valverde riding alongside him. There's a great rivalry amongst the Spaniards between Valverde, Rodriguez and Contador. Rodriguez and Valverde used to be the closest of friends. They were teammates for a long, long time. Now they're not quite friends. Not bitter rivals, but they are certainly rivals. Rogers across the top of the Category 4 climb in first position. There was no contest for the 1 point up for grabs. All about maintaining this advantage. 2 minutes and 11 seconds their lead. Here comes the main peloton up this climb. The Col de la Croix de Bouzon. Damiano Caruso is the rider off to the left in the red colours of BMC, as Nicholas Roach comes forward in the black for Team Sky. The other one was Jan Bakelants. And Bakelants said that he's not angry that his teammate Romain Bardet didn't win, but he certainly expected him to. And when he went across the finish line and saw that Steve Cummings was the stage winner, he said it was a real surprise. Steve Cummings was also asked about the performance of the other squads that were in the break, and he said it appeared as if AG2R had no strategy whatsoever. Two of the more experienced men at the back of the group, Lars Bak and Michael Rogers, both in their mid-30s. Well, they're not home and hosed yet with a minute and 52-second lead. It's not as if Katusha have really completely called things off. Although with the black colours of Team Sky now going to the front to protect the yellow jersey of Chris Froome, it's a real opportunity for that leading group of 9 to start to extend their lead. They'll take a few more risks out in front, whereas there's no need for Chris Froome to do so. Lars Bak, a former winner of the Tour Avenir, when he was expected to be one of the big stars of Danish cycling. Hasn't quite fulfilled the potential that many thought that he had, but he's turned out to be a great workhorse for the various teams that he's ridden for. He's been crucial to so many of the stage victories of Andre Greipel. He's even managed to win a stage in a Grand Tour himself. That was at the Tour of Italy a few years ago. Luke Rowe now coming to the front. And the black colours of the Bora Argon 18 team. This is Sam Bennett at the rear of the peloton, who also sits at the rear of the general classification. He's in last place overall, almost 3 hours behind Chris Froome. Making our way through a very popular rock climbing region in France in the Ardèche. National Park of the Ardèche, which was established in around about 1999 or thereabouts, around about the turn of the millennium, to preserve and develop the Commonwealth of the Ardèche region. And just looking at the landscape, it's not surprising to know that it is very popular with rock climbers. And this statue is to a former athlete journalist that covered the sport way back in the 1930s and 40s. Not the high mountains of the Pyrenees or the Alps, but they really are a stunning mountain range. As we head through the Massif Central into the department of the Ardèche, a region which sees a lot of bike racing. Paris-Nice often journeys through here, so too does the Criterium of Dauphiné, and this year the Tour de France. Alejandro Valverde up in the 3rd position. Wearing the yellow helmet, Movistar as the leaders of the team's classification. They have a 13-minute and 54-second advantage over Team Sky. Steve Cummings, cool, calm and collected at the back of the race. I wonder how he slept last night with that stage victory. Might have been replayed it a few times over his mind, and understandably so. A journeyman, perhaps you would label him as that, as a professional cyclist, 35 years of age. He's been in the pro ranks for more than 13 seasons. He's been a world champion on the track, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, Olympic Games silver medalist in the team's pursuit back in Athens in 2004. Stage winner at the Tour of Spain, but so often he's been on teams to work for other riders. Left BMC at the end of last season to go across to MTM Quebecer to get just a few more opportunities for himself towards the end of his career, and also share all that experience with one of the young growing teams. It paid dividends. The group of Jean-Christophe Perrault and Mark Cavendish and Mark Renshaw and a whole lot more making their way across the top of what is the second last climb of the day. Bad news for the sprinters is the hardest one of the day is still to come. It's Jerome Capel at the back of the group for IM Cycling. Ivanti is the rider who is in there for Movistar. Michael Kwiatkowski in the breakaway today. The rumours are that he'll be moving to Team Sky next season. He does at some point want to ride for the general classification, the overall standings at the Tour de France. But for now, at least, just aiming for stage wins. He said because he's started the season, the program is so heavy, targeting the Sprint Classics, and he did have success there this year, taking out the Amstel Gold Race. If he does at some point want to target the Tour, he's going to have to back things off early in the year. And again, Lars Bak going through that left-hander with the inside pedal down. The normal way of going through a corner is having the inside pedal up. Makes the bike a little bit more stable and reduces any risk at all of clicking the pedal through the corner. You can see the caution on Lars back as he does come out of that corner. He's drifting from hitting the apex, he's then drifting out wide, understandably so. And that inside leg, the knee, just tinkering off to try and maintain the balance in the right spot. There's Jerome Capel. So we're now back with the group with Jean-Christophe Perrault, and there's confirmation, bottom left-hand corner, the group of Perrault, second in last year's tour. And it was a horrible crash that he had a few days ago on the road to Rodez. His nicks just about came off completely. They were torn to shreds, cheese grater road, and as he went down, you could almost feel the collective groan right throughout the world watching the tour of ouch. Has fought on bravely. Deserves every little bit of credit that he gets. Luke Rowe is the rider at the front with Chris Froome sitting behind him. Key lieutenant over the next few days for Chris Froome, of course, is Richie Porte, who's found it a little bit difficult to deal with all the abuse that Team Sky has been receiving. And in his diary that he's been writing for Fairfax down in Australia, he said, "I'm just a kid who one day moved from Tassie and borrowed money from mum and dad to chase a dream." He's worked pretty hard to fulfill his dream, and Richie Porte is definitely in the process of doing so. He was unfortunate and lucky at the same time yesterday, Richie Porte. He was unfortunate that he punctured. He punctured the front wheel at a speed of 60 kilometres per hour. He was lucky that he managed to keep it upright. Gingerly through those corners back in the peloton. Meanwhile, the leading group of 9, they've got the throttle open, trying to extend their lead. And according to Race Radio, it has split at the front. 4 riders have opened up a little bit more of a gap, and it is Michael Rogers, Peter Sagan, Michael Kwiatkowski and Matteo Trentin who've got a small gap on the other 5. Pino and Back, who we've seen struggling on the descent, a few images of them, along with Geschke, Yates and Hejerdal. A little surprising to hear that rider Hejerdal is losing ground on the descent. Former medalist at the Under-23 World Championships in mountain biking. Lars Back, he really is struggling on this descent. No surprises that Peter Sagan, though, is going forward. Along with Michael Rogers, a man of great experience. 2 days ago on the road, he said to Richie Porte as they were buckling underneath the sweltering conditions, "I'm a little bit too old for this." No, you're not, Michael. A long way from it. Had a fantastic season last year, Michael Rogers. He won 2 stages at the Giro d'Italia, a stage at the Tour de France. He was really refreshed and invigorated after what was a very difficult off-season for him. Had to clear his name. He lived in limbo for around about 6 months. And the safest place to be is at the front. That's exactly where Chris Froome is. For all the question marks about Chris Froome's bike handling abilities, he's put them to rest throughout this year's tour. He was exceptional on stage 4 across the Pavé. Everybody was waiting for the attacks to come from the Italian Vincenzo Nibali, and they did come, but they weren't vicious. Then we saw Chris Froome himself in the yellow jersey try to make a little bit of a move. This is the split at the front. The world champion, Michael Kwiatkowski. It's then Michael Rogers, followed by Peter Sagan, and then Matteo Trentin at the back. You see those corners, no margin for error. Straight into the brick wall if you were to make a mistake. And that will make the nervous even more nervous. And that's precisely what Lars Back is. Rider Hejerdal rattling and rolling. Simon Geschke, Adam Yates, Thibaut Pinot. Let's bridge the gap the easy way. Even on the motorbike, it doesn't seem that easy. You could hear the throttle firmly open up as the road straightened up. Conversation between Trentin and Kwiatkowski. Not sure whether to go on with it by the sounds of them. They could probably do with the numbers as they get through into the Valley Road, although having said that, I'm sure that Peter Sagan would like to start the next climb of the day with a head start on Thibaut Pinot. Thibaut Pinot is certainly the best of the climbers in that group, having finished in 3rd place in last year's Tour de France. Lovely old bridge that they make their way across. So 10 seconds the deficit for the former members of the lead group. 5 riders just losing a little bit of ground on this descent. 2 minutes and 5 seconds back to the peloton. Then the group of Jean-Christophe Perrault at almost 8 minutes behind.
Looking at the back here, this is Tyler Farrer here at the back of the race, and Sebastian Chavanel. A little rain here as we go through Zodiac, and it looks to me as though we've got Tyler Farrer at the back, the American sprinter, and also another sprinter, Sebastian Chavanel, Team FDJ. The wet roads, though, I have to say, Paul, are causing a little bit of concern today now.
Well, they are. It's been a very difficult start to the race. The first hour of the race, they run off at about 46 kilometers an hour. Initially, 27 riders got clear off the front end of the main field and started to form a breakaway group. That split down to 9 riders. The 9 riders are currently still clear, with around about 2 3/4 minutes over the main field of the yellow jersey group and all of the other pre-race contenders. But one of the big favourites for the state victory today, Mark Cavendish, has been caught in a group a lot further back. He was dropped with a number of other sprinters at 10 kilometres into the race. So savage was the start. Peter Kenyuk from the Isle of Man there, the British national champion in the red, white and blue, he was also caught out in this back group.
Well, they're continuing to take no chase here, Paul. There's no question about them catching up now. It's a question about racing to beat the time limit by the end of the day, I think. They're in and out of these. They haven't actually been racing through any rain, but it's been hitting the roads before they get there.
Yes, for the group at the back of the race here, Phil, they're really going to have to keep a very close eye on the time gap because it obviously depends on the average speed of the race, but it's going to be between 8 and 9%, which will only give them between an 18 and 20 minute gap that they have to cross the line in after the winner finishes to stay in the race. It's that close, so it's going to be a bit risky for those guys.
On the town of Zodiac at the moment, this is in the Ardèche as we race down here. It possesses here, by the way, one of the youngest volcanoes in amongst the town. And we're hearing on race radio, in fact, the group Cavendish, as they're calling it, has closed a little bit. They're now inside 5 minutes behind the peloton after this long descent. But from what we've seen from the peloton, Paul, they've just been freewheeling down here.
Yeah, they were not taking any risks down that descent, and of course let's not forget that the main field are now lining themselves up to come into Aubenas. But from Aubenas then there's a very long ascent up to the top of the Col de l'Escrinet, and I don't think we'll see the pressure being applied by Team Katusha until they get over the top of that climb and start to line up for the long downhill towards the outskirts of the Valley of the Rhône.
Looking at the peloton as we course down the sides of the River Ardèche in this stunning area of France, as we cross across the country now, heading to Valence. And the good news is that Mark Cavendish off the back today, dropped early on. That they've closed in a little bit. They're less than 5 minutes behind now on this long descent, while up front they're lining up now for the green jersey sprint. And that man, Peter Sagan, has read the move again. There he is on the far side in his green jersey.
Well, he's taking a serious option on winning that competition for the 4th year in a row. Funny how the team owner, Oleg Tinkov, was so critical in the social media in the early part of the year about this rider's performances. But when you look at his performances, he was getting lots of placings, seconds and third placings, until he came to the Amgen Tour of California. What a dramatic finish he gave us there, winning a 3rd place finish on the final day to win himself a time bonus that gave him the overall victory. And that was a big indication that he was rising up to the top of his form. And here he is at the Tour de France, leading that green jersey competition once again.
Doing very well too. He's a very canny rider. He's read it so well. He's won that competition for the last 3 years, and he's setting himself up on this this was talked about as being a possible stage for the sprinters, and it's certainly the only one we can call a possible stage. There's no more till the last day, a week today in Paris. It's always been talked about as a mountainous tour, and yet here's a tough sprinter like Peter Sagan out on the hunt every day. We're into Aubenas now, and it's 1.3 kilometres towards the sprint.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the other sprinters do. Now, we know for the moment Peter Sagan is looking very comfortable in the breakaway group, but Greipel, Degenkolb and Alexander Kristoff are in the main field, which is currently just over 2 minutes behind. Mark Cavendish, well, he's not having the greatest of days here. He is well off the back at the moment. It's well, we're getting information between 5 and 6 minutes behind the yellow jersey group. So there's a lot of sprinters, Phil, in the yellow jersey group who'll be dreaming about catching this group of 9 leaders.
Two minutes, 3 seconds. It's a little rise up here into Aubenas. It's not an easy sprint for any sprinter, but we'll see if Peter Sagan is taking the wheel of Michael Rogers there. He's got Simon Yates in that white top jersey, but there's nobody normally here who could match Sagan in a sprint.
Well, theoretically, yes, but Phil, if you cast your mind back 12 months to a stage victory of the Tour de France in Nancy, a certain guy who happens to be in the breakaway here, Matteo Trentin, he actually got across the line in front of Peter Sagan in a photo finish, and Trentin's job, I think, will be to try and beat Sagan up to this, to try and reduce the number of points he gets. But look at the wind-up now coming from Michael Rogers on the front.
Well, Matteo is the rider just in our camera now, on the back wheel of the white jersey there, so he's being led out by his teammate Kwiatkowski. Look at this. It's becoming a formality. Rogers is just the rear guard. He's the teammate of Sagan. Nobody's bothered. Sagan gets 20 points. His teammate even gets to the 18. So that was pretty easy, and that's increased the overall lead at the moment. Remember, there is a sprint at the back for 10th place, and there's points available, first 5 there. Jens, now it's crucial now. Are they going to go on and try and win the day, or what do you think is going to happen?
Definitely they're going to go on and try to win the day. As I say, it's 50-50. No, it's not 50-50. They're going to get caught by Katyusha. I make up my mind here. They're going to get caught, but they're going to keep going because, hey, once you open that box, you might as well go to the very bottom of it. So once you're committed in a break, hey, you might as well go full gas. And I think Peter has in his mind, like, okay, I got 23 points here, and I might get a few more points at the finish line if we survive this stage. Saying that, Peter is such a legend that even if they would get caught, Peter is still going to be top 5 on the stage after being a breakaway, getting caught, and he's still going to be in the top 5 in the break. That's how crazy good he is.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that because there's still 74 kilometres to race yet. The beautiful crowd here, remembering the halcyon days when the race finished here, and now they're seeing the Tour de France again pass by.
9 riders in the leading group. You've got Pinot, Rogers, Sagan, Adam Yates and Ryder Hagedal. But the other riders in the breakaway group, Lars Bak is a teammate of Andre Greipel. Simon Geschke is a teammate of John Degenkolb. And then the 2 riders from Ethics Quickstep, well, they will probably now have to work in that leading group because they're probably figuring out that Mark Cavendish is not going to be one of the sprinters. And as you can see, Giant Alpecin have also decided now that they're going to try and lead this out because Degenkolb is looking for a few points, and not far away from him is Andre Greipel.
This is John Degenkolb at the front. He's got Greipel on his back wheel. 2 Germans going for it here. Greipel checking out what's going on as they're coming up to line, and they're not bothering to contest those small points, Paul. So Degenkolb is best of the rest. He's in 10th place.
I think we will see a bunch sprint this afternoon, of course, without Tyler Farrar, the American, and without Mark Cavendish.
This is the descent away from Aubenas. All the traffic comes from the right here, if the road wasn't closed. And shortly will leave the main road and disappear down the side road, which will be the D578B. And superb roads for cycling, as always, once you're off these main end roads, which is Route Nationale. Looking at the tail of the peloton as they swing away from Aubenas, briefly onto the end road that goes round this lovely city. They will turn away into the lanes again imminently now. There they go. The best road to the finish is straight on, but we're going a little bit longer as we head now towards, we're seeking out the Col de la Lecrenay. This is still Team Katusha setting the pace. They have said they want to keep this breakaway at 2 minutes or less, and they're doing that. And then they're waiting to see what happens on the climb coming up. And of course, if Christoph cracks, then they'll turn off.
Well, I don't think they'll ride that hard once they actually get to the slopes of the climb. They're riding here because this is the flatter part of the course before they start that second category climb. I think they'll climb the ascent at a fairly steady pace and try and keep numbers together at the front end of the main field. Once they've gone over the top of the climb, that's when they'll start to get themselves organised. But if you look at the long tail of riders here at the back end of the peloton, it gives you an idea of just how hard Team Katusha are riding.
Yes, and how hard the brake is riding, because they're holding it. Brought down a little bit, 148. We're over the Pont d'Aubenas now, the bridge there, as they continue to head towards the start of that climb. News on the Mark Cavendish group is 8 minutes 2 seconds behind the leaders. So they're not letting them go, they're holding on, and of course if they can keep a gap somewhere around that, they're well in the time limit at the finish, and that's probably all they're concerned about right now. Up to the leaders here.
I think Peter Sagan in the green jersey there, Phil, will be very happy that he's got Michael Rogers up alongside him. It's always great in a breakaway situation like this to have a teammate, somebody who you can rely on. And everybody knows that Michael Rogers, a former 3-time world champion in the individual time trial, is a great powerhouse to have up alongside you in a situation like this. Ravitaillement, the French lesson starting once again. This is the feeding zone, and all of the riders taking on board these bags, which in French are called the musettes. And in those bags they'll have a couple of bottles and plenty of food, usually highly calorific food when it comes to this point, whether they're energy bars or even energy gels.
Important to keep hydrated and not getting hungry on these long days of the Tour de France, and the heat is what causes the biggest problems to the riders as well. Now we'll see what the tempo is like now, Paul, because this is quite a hard climb, 15% at its steepest point.
It is a difficult climb, and I think that's why we'll start to see the gap go up for a fraction over the next 7.5 kilometres, because the leading group will continue to ride at their steady tempo, while in the main field behind, as they go past the 7.9 kilometre to go, that's 5 miles of climbing, Team Katusha are going to slow down a fraction. They don't want to blow the race apart at this point, because they want to have a bunch of allies over the top of the climb, because we've got a very, very long descent over the top of this Col de l'Escrinet, around about 20 miles downhill, and they'll need a lot of firepower to chase back the breakaway.
Well, we're getting high above the river. That's the Ardèche again down there.
Yes, magical backdrop of the Ardèche. That is the Cirque de Jean just down in the middle there, one of the marvels of the Ardèche. This area is renowned for its walking and swimming, and in fact there are around about 320 climbing routes on this climb, and over the top you'll find incredible lavender and wild sage. You can actually also find the ocellated lizard here, and it measures up to 60 centimeters in length, but it is very much renowned for its outdoor adventure. And as we saw just a few moments ago, plenty of people actually use the Ardèche for kayak and camping, so you can meander down the river and pull off in the evening and find a nice little campsite. France has so many different beautiful backdrops to offer. Katusha, and not a surprise at all to see the green jersey of Thomas Voeckler moving to the front as well, because we've been talking a lot about the sprinter Alexander Christophe from Katusha, but also the Europcar team from France have a very good sprinter, Brian Cocard, and he would be in with the chat if they can pull it all back together down towards the end. Just a quick look down there, we get a little view of St. John's Tower, the Tour de la Reine Jean. It's a medieval watchtower which was built to survey the road between Uzès and down towards Aubenas, and its name is given to the famous Jean de Balazoc, who was the lady of the manor here in the late 16th century, a woman of an extremely strong personality, who's reputed to have made the tower as her bachelor apartment, apparently. tower has been restored and is now privately owned. Back with the main field, you can see a little bit of assistance coming forward now, and it's all different tactics for different teams. Team Sky have absolutely no reason to chase that leading group of 9 riders. The closest rider to Chris Froome in the overall standings is Thibaut Pinot, and he's only 17th place overall, but 30 minutes and 57 seconds down. The closest after that is Michael Rogers at 49 minutes. So for Team Sky, it's almost a day off, riding towards the front end of the main field, keeping themselves out of danger, keeping a very close eye on how the breakaway is developing. But for them, they know other teams have their own objectives to make sure that breakaway doesn't survive on today's stage.
Ryder Hejadal at the front here, the only Canadian to have won the Tour of Italy, and a great bike rider. He had a tough ride in the Giro this year, but he got better and better and better, and he's brought that form to the Tour de France. He's leading them up here. The relaxed, casual pedalling style, a very nice pedalling style of the world champion there, Kwiatkowski, but he is fragile, Paul. He's had many breakaways, but towards the end he's cracked.
But he's only 24 years of age, and to win the World Championship at 24 years of age is already quite an impressive reference. I think he's one of those riders who's trying to learn and figure out what he can do in the future. This is a long way down the road now. We're starting to look, well, they're still locked in. They're not losing that much time. They're all
holding.
As you can see, they're now riding in, like, it's almost like a training ride relay here. They're all doing a little bit of a turn at the front because they realize they've got to work together to make sure they don't get eliminated. And yes, I tend to agree with what Jens Voigt said a little earlier on. They shouldn't get eliminated, but they need to keep working like this over the rest of the race to limit their losses.
They can't relax at all. They're heading towards the start of the climb of the Col de l'Escunay, where everybody else is on that climb at the moment. They're now in the time of Vesso. So it's a couple of kilometres to the start of the climb. Just looking at the face there, Jean-Christophe Perrault, the runner-up last year in the Tour de France, had that nasty crash. He's suffering. You can see it in his face, sitting right on the nose of his saddle. This is a day he just wants to get away, get it over with. He's 2 days away from a rest.
Well, Mark Cavendish has said on many occasions you can't call Peter Sagan a sprinter, and that's the rider in the green jersey there. He's the leader of the green jersey points competition, normally regarded as a competition for the sprinters. But Peter Sagan is one of those riders who, yes, he can mix it in the bunch sprints, but he can climb. He can do so much on his bike that that's why he leads this competition. He's Mr. Versatility, I would have to say.
Joined by Matt White, Sports Director at Orica Greenedge. Matt, you've got one of the Yates brothers in the breakaway. It's Adam today. Can this move survive? It's really touch and go.
Yeah, it is. The interesting thing will be who rides tempo on this last climb of the day. That will be the key factor, whether the break goes out any further or comes back. And then obviously we've got a good hour and a bit of racing off the top of the climb.
And Lars Bak has all the reasons in the world not to help because of his teammate Andre Greipel. He sat at the back of the race here, excuse the pun, but he is a good rider. He won a stage of the Tour of Italy back in 2012. Driving the breakaway here, gap is 1:49. We're heading up towards the summit of the Col de l'Escunay. It's still a little way to go. Beautiful area of France and a road we very along, and the huge crowds here welcoming the Tour.
Yes, they are, and a nice viewpoint for everybody here at these wonderful limestone craggy outcrops.
Well, you get some idea that, Paul, just how fast they really climb up these mountains.
Which just gives you an idea as well to indicate riders have certainly not given up. We see Thomas Voeckler coming over the top in first place, but also being attentive over the top of the climb. Alberto Contador, Alejandro Valverde. We're a long way to go from the finish. They're paying attention at the front end of the peloton.
Thomas Kent, good climber, sat last man here, 73. They've gone over the top, a 1:25 the official time coming from the course. We're showing 1:24 at the moment. Now that is not big enough, I would suggest.
I don't think it's big enough for 120. Once we start to get the firepower of the teams of the sprinters organised, we're now, Phil, looking at a long descent. It's not a steep descent, but it's one where the riders will feel that they can push the average speed in the main field to speeds approaching 35 to 40 miles an hour, and they won't really be hurting quite that much to keep the speed high, so they will start to really eat into that. The leader's speed currently around about 35 miles an hour. I would think the main field will be close to 37, 38 miles an hour. So shortly, I think they'll get themselves organised. And this group is not going to get the win from the leading group of 9.
Well, they're already knocked off 8 seconds as they tipped over the top. The peloton speeding at just on 50 miles an hour as they go down the mountain, nearly 80 kilometres an hour. And these roads, they don't have acute turns. They can hit the high spots here.
Yep, it's not really a technical descent here. As you say, Phil, a very fast descent, and that's why we've seen that average speed in the main field now starting to kick up to around about 50 miles an hour. And most aggressive rider of yesterday, Bergen, you spotted him with the red number on his back. Well, he's having a hard time just staying in contact. And as you can see, a few moments ago, it was all the teams of the sprinters up at the front end of the main field. Now it's the overall contenders starting to wind it up.
Well, the clock is in the descendancy here as they now are going to open up everything, because the sprinters will now be telling their teams, look, we can win this, let's go. And all the leaders, they're all in the pack, right there. All the men who've battled to open up the time gaps at the top of the leaderboard. Chris Froome, Nairo Quintana, TJ Van Garderen, Valverde and Contador, the first 5 riders in the race.
Yeah, but as you can see, once they get to any kind of descent, anything that might be at least perilous, you can see Team Sky come to the front of the main field. Now there's a little move from the leading group here, because just going around the corner, that looks to me as if Matteo Trentin, Phil, has just slipped the leading group of 9.
Well, that's a cheeky move if he has. And there he is up front.
Taking chase after him, Mickey Rogers, followed immediately there by Peter Sagan.
Well, we're on the descent and we go down through the town of Privas, and that's where we have a choice of ways, but our boys will go right through the middle on a very small road. And this is the site of Perrault, driving at the front here after his crashes, heavily bandaged, suffering like you would not believe, and is determined not to give up the Tour de France after finishing 2nd last year.
This is also the group that Mark Cavendish, Daniel Tekla-Heimenot are in as well. They're losing huge chunks of time on this day. Because of the speed of the start, they ended up getting left behind after just 6 miles. Jeremy Roy is the other rider, just over to the right-hand side. He was one of the riders who was in the breakaway on yesterday's stage. Just goes to show, you know, it's very much like that bank account I keep talking about with energy. If you use too much, you've got to go into the red zone the following day to top up the energy levels once again. And of course this man has been right deep into the hurt locker, and that of course is JC, they call him, Jean-Christophe Perrault, former Olympic silver medalist in 2008 in the mountain bike before switching across to road racing.
This is back up with the leaders here, and they're still chasing Trentin down that climb, and this is the peloton, and they've knocked off a lot of time. We're heading to a minute now.
Yeah, but this is interesting because all of a sudden it's Movistar have come to the front in those dark blue jerseys with the lime green M on the top there. You know, they're not going to give this race any opportunity that might present itself is worthwhile grabbing. So, with the new technology available, we get a chance to see the average speed with Peter Sagan in the leading group. He's going downhill here at 54 kilometers an hour. Alexander Kristoff, sorry, in the group behind, he is closer to 60. But this is interesting to see on, again, a stage where at this point of the stage it's not strategically important for a move to come, that Movistar have moved to the front end of the main field.
So the riders here, as we course through the gorges now, as we head down to Privas itself. This beautiful town here tucked away, and the peloton are really charging. Now, we expected this, Paul. We expected the peloton to continue. As you look down on the Chateau du Voguet, and Paul Sherwin is an expert on this particular chateau, right, Paul?
I certainly am. It goes back to the 12th century, of course, although it was reinforced in the 14th century. It became the property of the family Gosse, who then handed it over to the Rochebourg du Bessay. It was transformed with the addition of the 4 towers that you can see on the outside. It really is quite remarkable the way many of these historical monuments in France have been preserved. It was refitted, by the way. I'm not sure if they're talking about the kitchen, but in 1603 by the Vogue family.
Yeah, it is a private historical monument and absolutely magnificent. As we go back to the Tour de France here, the gap is now ringing at 1 minute here. Movistar pushing on the descent, stretching them out. They're going to catch that breakaway for sure. As we're catching up with the leader on the road now, which is Matteo Trentin. He's going to give it a good go, but he set himself an awful long way to go to the finish, but hey, he's going to do most of it downhill.
Well, this is the sort of day when it's not that crazy to go on the attack with 48 kilometres to go, because he's got 20 kilometres downhill to, first of all, he goes through the town of Privas, then he goes down into the small town of Poussin, and that gives him 20 kilometres downhill. And if he can keep the pressure nice and high and they don't organise the chase behind him, he could go down into the valley of the Rhone with a 30-second or a 45-second advantage. And just looking at his style here, he's looking quite comfortable on his machine. And he's got the advantage, Phil, because in the group behind him, he's got a teammate, and his teammate can get an easy ride. And that's, of course, Michael Kwiatkowski, the world champion. And they must have talked about this.
This is a lovely little town. We're coming in just on the outskirts of Privas now. As we continue to race on, there'll be a huge crowd down here as we get down. This is the group he has left behind for the moment, and there's somebody else gone off the front here.
That, I think, was Simon Geschke. It was a dark black jersey. And, oh, gee,
that's a bit tricky. Kwiatkowski showed us a new style of bike riding there.
Yeah, but did you see Peter Sagan, how quickly he leaped across that gap there? He's such an incredible bike handler. As there's Kwiatkowski. He'll sit here. There's Peter Sagan. He's just keeping an eye on affairs. Lars Bak doesn't want to get caught out. It's his job, number 72, to make sure the breakaway doesn't go clear of the front end of the main field, because he's thinking about reinforcements coming from the back group and, of course, from Andre Greipel.
Well, they're still pushing on. We can show this again here. It's pretty good.
Very good bike handling.
Terrific.
I think when they looked over there, Kwiatkowski with his landing, he was looking to the other riders in the breakaway to say how many points for difficulty in that one. Well, I give him 9.8 out of 10. That was a fabulous move as he just lifted the bike smoothly across in a diagonal distance to get himself back safely into the tailwind of the rider in front of him. Back now with the leader. Now this is Matteo Trentin. Won a stage last year in the Tour de France and in the Tour of Switzerland. One of the youngsters on the squad, and they're not actually responding here. Just a little bit further forward is Simon Geschke. The gap is 1 minute and 15 seconds back to the main field, but there's no organised chase here. Now that could be rather interesting. Looking here at Thibaut Pinot. Pinot really had an ideal preparation this year for the Tour de France, and back to the calvaire, as the French would call it, of J.C. Perrault. Just at the back, Jeremy Watt up alongside him. A lot of riders in this group having a long, hard day in the saddle. There is Peter Kenyuk, just riding in front of the South African flag a few moments ago. Daniel Tekla-Heimenot, and of course this is a group of Mark Renshaw and Mark Cavendish, but they're more than 10 minutes behind. Phil, in that leading group of 9 riders, Team Ethics Quickstep had 2 riders present. One, the world champion, Michael Kwiatkowski. Matteo Trentin, a winner of a stage in the Tour de France last year. I think this is an ideal place for him to make the move, because, as I said, it's downhill for about 20 kilometres. And although he's on his own, he's probably expending about the same amount of energy as the riders in the group behind, because of the fact that it's downhill for a long, long period. He's trying to build up a lead until he gets to the bottom of this climb, and then they'll be in the valley of the Rhone, which then rides up towards Valence, and he should pick up a tailwind. So there's a good chance of creating the surprise. The chaser just a little bit further up there is Simon Geschke, the German rider from Giant Alpecin. And then a little bit further back, you can see there's no real collaboration or organisation in the chase in the 7 riders in the group we're looking at here.
But they're certainly not going to give the bunch an easy chase back, even though they're 1 minute and 10. They have been down to 1 minute almost, and they're pulling away again. Now they're still continuing to race towards the finish on the fastest expected time today, so they really haven't hung around The organisers have 3 expected arrival times, by the way, because this is to make sure that everybody, police particularly, have the roads all shut down. Well, this is the group going over the top of the Le Crinet, and it's timed on my computer at 12 minutes and 16 seconds. They still need to get a move on. They can't afford to lose too much time, Jens.
No, definitely they cannot afford to lose much more time. They got to work a little bit, and I guess in the end, the whole group back there, they're gonna sit in the same boat going, okay, none of us wants to be eliminated, you know, within a week before Paris, so let's work together, you know, and let's get this thing moving to the finish line. I mean, after they come across this hilltop, it's downhill and flat for the last group as well, and all you have to do is just keep the same speed like the first group, and I'm convinced absolutely that they're gonna make it. But yes, it's no present, it's no pleasure cruise today.
Outskirts of Poussin, and that is not far away then from the valley of the Rhone, and by that time I would expect to see the main field right on the tailcoats of the remnants of the breakaway. And there's a number of teams now are quite happy to come forward and work. Europe Car is one of those. They're probably thinking about their man Brian Coquart, and they're about to get caught now, the group of Sagan, leaving only 2 riders in front.
Well, just take a look at this now. 58 seconds, Geschke's back, but rider Heyerdahl has replaced him on the attack. He's still out front, chasing Trentin. But here comes Europe Car. They've got a good sprinter in Brian Coquart, and they have to count fast and say, hey, there's still 2 guys missing in that group as they continue to drive the speed. 1 minute, 1 second. As we look across the spread, Heyerdahl is 16 seconds in front of those riders in green now.
Well, the 1 minute, that corresponds at these speeds, Phil, to actually less than a kilometre, the distance between the lone leader and the main field, because they're probably riding down here pretty close to 60 kilometres an hour on the downhill parts of the course. A fairly laboured style here for rider Heyerdahl, but he's a powerful rider, and he'll be churning a massive big gear here. And he is a rider who's got a great pedigree behind him, as you said, winner of the Giro d'Italia. And he finished 5th overall in the Giro d'Italia this year, and really he got stronger as the race went on.
He had a great finish, and for that reason he came to the Tour de France. Now he's settling into this race as well. I don't know, he looked over his shoulder possibly as he just did. They're now telling them here from the car that all of your breakaway partners are back in the pack except Heyerdahl. He's still holding 55 seconds, 38 kilometres to go, normally not enough, but he's going to make them chase him down.
So, well, it's going to be difficult, though, because as they now begin to exit the small town of Flaviac on that river Ouvèze, they have a 3/4 of a minute advantage over the main field, which contains 4 very good sprinters. Sagan, Greipel, Christophe, all the big men, all the big sprinters looking for the stage victory are right here in this group.
Well, they've come together, Paul. 36.8 kilometres to race. Sagan gone to the back of the peloton for the moment. Now 2 versus the rest.
Well, still, it's going to be a tough call, you know, and the only way they would survive is if in the main field behind they stop the organisation. But there's so many big teams coming forward now. Phil, no, it's not raining. I think that's just a little bit of water off the shoulders of Matteo Trentin. And just having a look here, Sagan has had a mechanical problem. Well, yes, hello, give me a bike.
Or whatever's happened, his bike's broken. Well, that happened just as he was caught. That's amazing. Is that a souvenir for the cameraman? Maybe. Here we go.
Well, that didn't seem like too much panic. I think there was a planned move. Sagan back, use a convoy of cars to pick himself up, looks over his shoulder to see what's happening. The change of the bicycle happened extremely quickly there. He keeps looking back to make sure he's got plenty of assistance. He's like a seasoned professional, Peter Sagan, although he's only 24 years of age. He really is a remarkable character, and he rides with the experience of a man who seems to have been pro for years and years. He turned professional back in 2009, and he's still, well, in fact, he's actually 25 years of age. He turned 25 on the 26th of January, which is why he still qualifies for the best young rider competition. He's lost a lot of time in that, but now what he's thinking about is trying to win this green jersey points competition for the 4th year in a row. Just trying to figure out if that bike change was a bike change that was pre-planned. Keeps looking over his shoulder. He's waiting for the mechanic, waiting for his own team car to come up alongside it. The two leaders now, Ryder Hagedal and Matteo Trentin, well, they have got a 30 seconds advantage over the chasers as they now go through the small little town of Saint-Julien-en-Saint-Alban. Saint-Alban is a name that's attached to many of the little villages around here, in fact, going back to the wars of religion, reducing a lot of the regions of Saint-Alban to ruins. But there are a lot of caves. Now the teams have all stopped here. You got now waiting for him, Tossato and Valgren. They've been given the nod to sit back and actually wait for Peter Sagan to pace him back into the main field. Now I think Sagan might have changed to a bike, a slightly different bike for the final part of this race. Made in the Ardèche. Well, this is certainly right in the heart of the Ardèche region, and I just keep wondering, Phil, whether that was a planned bicycle change there by Peter Sagan.
It was apparently, Paul. While I've been away, I've been checking, and it was a planned bike change, and apparently the Tinkoff team have been doing it on a daily basis when they've worked out what terrain lies ahead.
Well, that's the way I think the sport is going to evolve. They're very much like Formula One. You decide which tyres you need for what conditions. And Peter Sagan here, now that the fact is that he's not in a breakaway situation, he realises that this race is going to come down to a bunch sprint, so he probably wants a slightly more rigid machine for the final few kilometres. Not a surprise, though, to see this organisation. I don't think those two riders have got very much of a chance to survive, because look at this. You've got Lotto Soudal doing the pacemaking with Europcar, and, of course, right in there as well, Team Katusha.
Yes, and
Switzerland in the Furka Glacier on the slopes of the St. Gothard Pass, which is very often nicknamed as the water tower of Europe. There is the Rhone, and just about to cross over. This is the small town now of Pouzin. They actually just went by a beautiful Roman bridge with a single arch just over to the right-hand side. And now they take the left-hand turn. They're going to ride right the way across along the valley of the River Rhone for quite some time now, 30 kilometers or so, before they pop over to finish in Valence. 15 seconds is the advantage. Matteo Tron, they both looked over the shoulders now. They've been professional long enough to know that the writing is pretty much on the wall. These two riders, Phil, seasoned professionals as they are, they know, well, it's not going to work today.
Well, they made that left turn, Paul. When we drove the course yesterday, we went straight on. It's a shorter way to the finish line. These boys are going to run right down the side of this beautiful Rhone River now. They're chatting to each other. Good try, ain't going to work. Let's just save a little bit for the final 29 kilometres, because there's the peloton bringing them back.
Yeah, the organisers obviously knew that this was the likely outcome. Goodbye, well done, thank you very much. And I'd have to say that was a pretty long breakaway for this group of 9 riders, but they were never given too much freedom over the main field, and that was really because of Team Katusha. So that puts a lot of pressure, Phil, onto the shoulders of Alexander Kristoff.
Well, entering the Rhone Valley, by the way, this is 812 kilometres long, the valley, and another magnificent piece of topography of France. There's the peloton reshuffling, and it's quite clear that Europcar have a little bit of confidence in their sprinter today, especially now the mountains are back of him, and that's Brian Cockart. The red jerseys are Lotto. They're looking for Andre Greipel to show his, and so far Andre, for me, has been the fastest finisher in this race. He leaves it late and he runs quick in the last 100 metres.
Well, as Greg Henderson, who I'm sure is watching the Tour de France from home, having had to retire with a broken rib, said Andre Greipel is in the form of his life. The only downside I can think to Andre Greipel's finish today is the fact that he's got 3 stitches and an injury that he got yesterday in the early part of the stage. But, you know, we've seen Andre Greipel bounce back from tougher things than that. Riders starting to dream about the possibility that they can create the surprise and outwit the sprinters. But always you see the teams of the overall contenders moving around the outside to protect the position of their leaders.
So a sprint finish, Paul, around about 300 metres out. They come through on the inside of it. If you're not in amongst the front runners at that point, I don't think you'll get into it.
Well, that's the most important thing, but there are a number of roundabouts as well inside of the last 5 kilometres. You've got to be very careful and position yourself, and if you tend to lose your position inside of the last 5 or 6 kilometres, it's very difficult to replace yourself into the final sweeping bend. But I think it's a great finish for the sprinters this afternoon. It's nice and wide. Andre Greipel will be wondering if he can notch up win number 3, and I think the big advantage that Andre Greipel has got, Phil, is he's got a good lead-out train who have absolute confidence in him.
Well, we've gone back down the road over 12 minutes now. This is Jean-Christophe Perrault, bandaged up after that terrible crash he has, but he's determined to go on, and indications are he won't have a problem with the group being eliminated now at 12 minutes back and only 16 kilometres out. And Mark Cavendish here, well, he's just going to be feeling pretty upset about the fact he slipped off on the first climb of the day and they never came back. Because for the riders up front, they're licking their lips now because the best sprinter isn't going to be involved in the sprint finish.
Well, I think he gambled on the fact that the main field would take it easy once a breakaway had formed. I think he looked at the way the race was going to evolve, and unfortunately for him, I think he believed he could get dropped and catch back up into the race. That certainly is not the way the race unfolded because of the rather high speed we had over the first 2 hours of racing, close to 28, 29 miles an hour.
Well, BMC have had a great Tour de France so far. They've won 3 stages and they've got TJ Van Garderen sitting high in the overall. So they're feeling confident that they have the winner today.
Well, they're feeling confident. You've got TJ Van Garderen, though, still sitting in 3rd position. I think all he's thinking about is safety and keeping himself to the front of the main field. And now there's, you can see over on the right-hand side, you've also got up there the yellow jersey of Chris Froome, the green jersey of Peter Sagan, the white jersey of Quintana moving up. All of the overall contenders, they're trying to defend their position, making sure they don't get caught in an accident. They've got about 0.8 of a kilometre to go to get to the 3 kilometre point, where if they have any mechanicals or any accidents, they'll be safely home and given the same time as everybody else. But it's still Team BMC. I keep looking back there. There is Greg van Avermaet from BMC. His head's bobbing around there, keeping a close eye on everybody else. But now's the moment when you've got to hold your position as we start to line up. This is Daniel Oss on the front.
As they continue to go a little bit of a gap here. Now that looks very, look, I might be Stibar has made a move here. He's done it before. As he's made a little shoot away from the bunch. He's got 3.3 kilometres. And looking at the peloton, he's caught them off guard again. As we continue, they're taking out that roundabout. That's a nice move, a nice smooth crossing there. 3.2. Once we go through 3, all the riders will get the same time. That's good news for the leaders of the Tour.
Well, now all of a sudden Lotto Soudal have said, oh, we made a little bit of a tactical error here at 3 kilometres to go. We need to really wind this up. Zdeněk Štibar, a phenomenal rider when it comes to cyclocross. He's already had himself a stage victory in the Tour de France, and you might just have noticed the speed there, Phil. 55 kilometres an hour is what he's charging along at. But there's not very many men can do this kind of an effort over the last 3 kilometres of a race. He's got to keep the pressure on here for around about 3.5 minutes.
He won in Le Havre up a steep hill when the leaders of the Tour all fell around him. He popped out the winner, and of course it led to the final abandonment of the 2nd yellow jersey of the Tour de France, his teammate Tony Martin. He said anybody can hold these people up. It is him. If they allow just a moment's relaxation and don't take up the chase, he'll be gone.
Well, that's what he counts on when he makes a move like that. He counts on a little bit of disorganisation. I noticed Peter Sagan was right up onto the back wheel there of John Degenkolb.
Well, he looks to see where they are. He knows now he's totally committed. It's win or lose. That's the way it is now for him. 2.2 kilometres to go. It's going to be tight.
Well, that's about 7 seconds the advantage, and all he can hope for is there's a bit of disorganisation comes here. We're down to 2 riders now leading out. Christophe, that was the rider in the red and white jersey, as they go inside of 2 kilometres to go.
Well, he's now looking for 1, and that'll be the yellow kite in the road. We're coursing right down the main street here in Valence now. It is a very good approach. It is a pure sprint, and they know it now as they try to organise the sprint, and they're being disrupted by the attack of the Zdeněk Štibar.
Well, Christophe is 3rd wheel. Behind him is Andre Greipel. Behind him in the green jersey is Sagan. It looks very much as if it's all over bar the shouting.
Well, I'll tell you what, the white jersey in the centre of the pack under the tree, that's Michael Matthews, who seems to be recovering from his broken bones. As they're closing in now, it's Christoph's team trying to close them down. The green jersey note, fourth down in that line, is Peter Sagan.
Well, Sagan is just trying to freelance a little bit, watching how the other riders in front of him are going to sort out the sprint. Stibar is going to get caught before they get to the final kilometre. Satabi made the effort, puts his hand up, really is a warning to the other riders, Phil, that he's going backwards, because this can always be very, very dangerous. Just have a look at this one more time. The power, it's a very, very long sprint for Andre Greipel. His compatriot from Germany on the right-hand side, John Degenkolb, is coming. But all of a sudden, it seems as if Greipel has got the lunge for the line. Going to be very close for second and third as the Katusha rider is coming forward. And Phil, what an impressive ride there by Peter Sagan. Second place to Degenkolb, third place to Christoph, and fourth place to Peter Sagan.
The best sprinters all.
Well, what an amazing sprint. Look at the face there. This is the man who yesterday was down on the ground. He had 3 stitches last night to put himself back together. He would have been very, very stiff in the early few kilometres, but he makes it win number 3. He's the top sprinter in the Tour de France this year. Now he's got to get on the crampons and try and hang on over the mountains to see whether he can do the same again on the Champs-Élysées in a week's time, because from now the Tour de France moves away from the flatlands and heads up into the big alpine passes. Look at this one more time. Coquart, well, he got caught out there. I don't really know what he got his hand up for, but in the charge for the line, 1, 2, 3, 4 great sprinters: Greipel, Degenkolb, Christoph and Peter Sagan. So there should also be no change in the overall standings, because all of the main contenders were happily locked in the front end of the main field there, and so they will be given the same time. Here is confirmation: Greipel, Degenkolb, Christoph Sagan and Edvald Boasson-Hagen.
Welcome to stage 16 of the Tour de France. Matthew Keenan with you on a day where we head to Gap, on a course that is more famous for its treacherous final descent than its climbing. And with tomorrow being a rest day, we can expect an aggressive stage today. Stage 16 starting in Bourg de Péage. It is a long stage making its way through the Gap, 201 kilometres. There's 2 Category 2 climbs, and then that final descent through the finish line, which has claimed some victims in the past. Most of the stage is gradually going uphill. It's by no means an easy day in the saddle. Once again, warm conditions in the start town, which basically translates as toll booth town. As they head through the Gap, a town that has been a regular host of stage finishes, particularly over the past 15 years. And with 123 kilometres remaining, this is the situation on the road. There are 2 groups well ahead of the peloton. This is the leading group of 12 riders. They're at 6 minutes and 3 seconds ahead of the peloton containing the yellow jersey of Chris Froome. In this group, once again, Peter Sagan. The man in the green jersey, he's also wearing the red number as the most combative rider on yesterday's stage. There is a second group on the road containing 12 riders as well, and they're at 1 minute and 19 seconds behind. Good to see the Luxembourg national champion in this move, Bob Jungels. He's just calling for a drink. And this is the group of the chasers. 2 riders from MTM Quebec, Daniel Tekla-Hammernots and Edvald Boasson-Hagen in this chasing group for MTM Quebec. edX Quickstep also with 2 riders in this group, Mikael Golash and Matteo Trentin. Thomas Vockler, he's here for the Europe car team, as he so often is on stages like this. Iverti is the rider in this group for Movistar. Pierre-Luc Perichon just going through your picture in the black and green colours. This is Adam Hansen in his 12th Grand Tour in the red colours of the Lotto Soudal squad. There he is at the back of the group. And it has been an extraordinarily fast start to the stage. Throughout the first hour, they covered 53.6 kilometres. Admittedly, it has been a tailwind, but the terrain has predominantly been uphill. They started the stage at an altitude of 157 metres above sea level. They're now at 300 metres above sea level. So that curtails the tailwind just a little bit. So either way you look at it, even if it was flat with a tailwind, that's fast. This is Pantano from the IM cycling team. Mate from Cofidis. This is Hansen from Lotto Soudal. And haven't they had a successful race? 3 stage wins with Andre Greipel. 3 stage wins for edX Quickstep as well, with 3 different riders. This is Golas this time, who's in the move. Bosenhagen, the Norwegian national champion. What an occasion it has been for MTM Quebecer. Irazar is the rider from Trek Factory Racing, one of the many men in the race from the Basque Country. They're working well together, but they're still at 1 minute and 12 seconds behind. That was Matteo Trentin making his way through. He was also in the break yesterday, and he was the one that tried to split things up towards the end and just hope maybe they could defy the sprinters. 31 degrees at the start, 31 degrees at the finish. Barely a cloud in the sky here at the finish line in Gamp. Lovely conditions for the spectators. Hot conditions again for the riders. And you can see the average speed for the first hour of racing, which I made reference to before, 53.6 kilometres per hour. That is smoking. They really have been moving this morning. It is the rest day tomorrow, of course, and I said this morning, but it's very much the afternoon. The stage getting underway a little after midday in the glorious sunshine, as we saw the weather report as well, 31 degrees. Intrigued to look down upon the peloton and try and work out exactly who is it doing the chasing. As we look at the remnants of a chateau that was built around about the year 1200 and controlled access to the upper Drone Valley. Partially destroyed in the 16th century, the empty shell of this keep, surrounded by the 2 walls, is maintained as best as they possibly can. This is Michael Giral towards the back, number 14 for the AG2R Le Mondial squad. Astana now on the front doing the chasing, but they do have a rider sitting in the front group. Andrei Grivko, the Ukrainian, who's a strong time trialist, he's in the front group for Astana. Yet I get the impression that they're hoping that Vincenzo Nibali can win the stage today. Mark Renshaw delivering the drinks for edX Quickstep, who are also helping with some chasing. This is Gruzdev now at the front for the Astana squad. And the entire edX Quickstep team is here towards the front, but they've got 2 riders in the second group on the road. And those 2 riders are Mikael Golas and Matteo Trentin. And they sit at 1 minute and 16 seconds behind the front group of 12. Here we go to the leaders. Peter Sagan, he's 4 kilometres away from another intermediate sprint and gaining 20 more points in the race for green. Simon Geschke in the black colours, the bearded one, who was in the break yesterday. For Katusha, they've got a man in the move today. They missed out yesterday and had to do a lot of the chasing. This time through, they've got the Austrian national champion, Marco Haller, in the break. Christophe Riblon has made the move for AG2R Le Mondial. A dual stage winner in the Tour de France. He's won in the Pyrenees and he's won in the Alps. De Gens gives himself a break from doing chasing by getting in the move. Serge Parles sitting in second last position in this group in the colours of MTM Quebecer, number 218. Understandably, Serge is not contributing to the pacemaking of this group, because in the second group on the road, he's got 2 of his teammates, Edvald Bosenhagen and Daniel Tekla-Hamanots, and if these 2 groups came together, Edvald Bosenhagen would be a big chance to win. And Norwegians have won here in Gap in the past. Back in 2011, it was Tor Hushovd who won the stage. For the Movistar team. Alejandro Valverde from that team has said there'll be fireworks today. There were fireworks the last time we came here. That was in 2013. And Alberto Contador tried to attack on the descents and he crashed. He didn't crash severely, unlike what we saw with Yeshiva Bolocki back in 2003. But he did crash, and Chris Froome kind of came unstuck. It wasn't a full-blooded crash for Chris Froome, but he certainly did get the foot out and had a slight touchdown. He was uninjured, which was the good part of it. There's Louis Vestre now on the front for Astana. Fourth on the stage yesterday, Peter Sagan. There he is in the green jersey. We've completed 15 stages so far, and Peter Sagan has finished in the top 5 in 10 of those stages. He's just making sure that he's going to be in a position to be able to win this intermediate sprints. Brick Federigo is the rider that just moved up to take his wheel. The experienced Frenchman. He was very disappointed a few days ago when he didn't get awarded the most combative prize. And I understand his disappointment. He said he took it as a sign of disrespect. He was the rider that started the breakaway, and he was the last one from the two-man breakaway to be caught. Yet the judges awarded Kenneth van Bilsen from Cofidis, a Belgian rider, as the most combative on the stage. The spine of Peter Sagan is slightly twisted as he then also turns the head to see if anybody is going to dare to challenge him from behind. But he wants to collect these 20 points without spending any unnecessary energy. He will collect. So Peter Sagan now will extend his lead in the race for the green jersey out to 64 points. As we've mentioned the last few days, the Tinkoff Saxo team have said that these are the days through the transitional days in the Massive Central where Peter Sagan can lock up this green jersey classification. But with the big stage win yesterday by Andre Greipel, the race is anything but done. There's also been a clear shift at Tinkoff Saxo as to where they're spending all their resources, and a loss of confidence in the ability of Alberto Contador to be able to win the race, which is perfectly understandable, given that Alberto Contador has got 4 minutes and 23 seconds to try and make up. And every time the road has gone uphill, he hasn't looked as if he's been able to even hold on to Chris Froome, let alone attack him. This is the chasing group of 12. It is Pantano who is at the front. And nice to see Jalison Pantano off the front today as he's celebrating Colombia Independence Day, when Colombia got its independence from Spain on the 20th of July back in 1810. The main Colombian that the Colombians themselves will be paying attention to today is Nairo Quintana. And the main peloton, they're 3 kilometres behind on the road. It is a long way down. That's on the second group, so they're almost 4 kilometres behind the lead group. A gap of 5 minutes and 39 seconds. The speed is still desperately high. 2 climbs on today's stage, both of them Category 2 climbs. But as I mentioned earlier on, it's the final descent today that is more famous than the actual climb itself. There's a horrible crash here in 2003. That was with Josipa Bolocki, the Spanish climber, who had formerly finished on the podium at the Tour de France. There was also a crash on the descent with Alberto Contador in 2013. And then Contador got back to the lead group, which contained Chris Froome, all the other big favourites for the general classification. As we see confirmation of Peter Sagan collecting the 20 points. And then Alberto Contador came past Nairo Quintana and accused him of taking advantage of Alberto's misfortune, when it really wasn't Alberto Contador's misfortune. It was a mistake on his behalf. He tried to attack on the way down. This, by contrast, is misfortune. There's a rear wheel puncher for Richie Porte. And a little bit of yoga whilst he's at it. Richie trying to stay limber and relaxed. no doubt looking forward to tomorrow's rest day. He'll be required with the following few stages as we head into the Alps. Team Sky have most certainly been in the news over the last few days, and not just for the performances of Chris Froome, but as much as anything else, the reaction to the performances of Chris Froome. Briefly back to the story about the crash on this descent back in 2013. Contador wasn't happy with Nairo Quintana, so he remonstrated with him on the road, and it was caught on camera. Alejandro Valverde was in the group and he also saw it, a teammate of Nairo Quintana. And he takes a big brother sort of a role with Nairo Quintana, Alejandro Valverde. He then went, after the stage, directly to Alberto Contador at Contador's team bus and said, if you've got a problem with Nairo Quintana, you've got a problem with me. Let's deal with it in private as opposed to in front of the cameras. Nairo Quintana knows that he's got a good ally in his experienced teammate and team captain, Alejandro Valverde. Even though it's Nairo Quintana who is the team leader, it is Valverde who is the captain. This is Julien Vermont at the front for edX Quickstep. Yesterday we saw Peter Sagan change his bike. He went across from the tarmac to the Venge for the sprint finish yesterday of the specialised bike options. And as he did that, one of the motorbikes carrying the cameraman came very close to him. Peter Sagan said it actually interrupted and slowed down the bike change. And then the team mechanic threw a bidon, a water bottle, at the cameraman and the motorbike. It was a pretty good throw. You wouldn't want to challenge him for a quick single in cricket if he was playing the game. But as a result of that throwing of the bidon, the sports director who was driving the car at the time, Sean Yates, has been excluded from the tour for today. And for today only. This tower that we're now getting a chance to look at dates back to the 19th century. 218 search bales. What an occasion it must have been on Mandela Day when Steve Cummins won the stage for that squad. Still doing the right thing by the team search. He's not contributing to the pacemaking. He wants to give that second group every chance to come across, and come across without Edvald Bosenhagen in particular spending too much energy. And Danny Navarro is in the front group for Cofidis, as Luis Angel Mate is in this second group on the road for Cofidis. Lotto Soudal with Adam Hansen in this group, Thomas de Gent in the front group. They're about to join forces. It's sure to be a thrilling end to the stage, because with so many teams with more than one rider in the group, once it all comes together and we get 24 riders at the front, that know that they're not going to be able to beat Peter Sagan or Edvald Bosenhagen in a sprint. That last climb is going to be super aggressive, as they're going to need a reasonable gap on Peter Sagan to stay away from him on the descents. Greg Federico at the front for Breton Séché. He's about to be joined by a teammate with Pierre-Luc Perichon once again in the break. Emerging of the two échappés. The escapes coming forward, and a lunatic on the left-hand side of the road. It was probably best I didn't even acknowledge to give him the attention. Not sure if you were watching the Giro d'Italia this year, and I think it might have been stage 2 from memory. A spectator was on a bike and tried to jump into the peloton and caused a very large crash. Pure stupidity. Bob Youngles rolling off the front. Now this group just need to get themselves reorganised. They're not going to lose too much time though, I can't imagine, as the teammates will have a brief chat to each other, start to hatch the plan. This is Mate from the Cofidis squad as they enter the feed zone. Well, we have seen some ordinary crowd behaviour so far this year, but it's not the first time it's happened. Famously, Eddie Merckx back in 1975 was punched in the stomach in one of the mountain stages. And one of the most bizarre and most frightening incidents that we've ever seen was in the 2009 Tour de France, when the Kiwi, Julian Dean, who now works as a sports director for Orica Green Edge, Julian Dean and Oscar Freire, the former world champion, was shot with air guns. They had massive wallets on their backsides as a result.
got to its highest point at 11 minutes and 32 seconds with 76 kilometers to go. I think it's one of those days when the riders have had a number of very, very difficult early starts. Yesterday the race was run off at extremely high speed as the riders came away from Mons on the way to Valence with average speed of 45, 46 kilometers an hour over the first hour of the race. Today, exactly the same thing with an average speed of close to 54 kilometers an hour. And yes, if you like professional cycling, there's some very interesting cycling art, and we saw it a couple of days ago, and it's been reproduced right down there in the middle of that field. 76 kilometers to go. 11:43. Here's Adam Hansen. To think Adam Hansen might be taking an option on the victory. You know, he's a rider who just seems to be a rider who never slows down. It's like having a massive big diesel engine. If Adam Hansen gets himself 15 or 20 seconds advantage as we get down to the end of this race, they'll have a hard time catching him.
Well, just looking at the nationality of all these teams in the breakaway, I know that our Dutch colleagues on Dutch television are absolutely fuming that not a Dutch cyclist in the race, and they've got more than most riders in the race, has put anybody in this breakaway. And it's a big breakaway of 23 riders. Peloton looks as though they're just going to allow it to hold here. We're on the climb of the Col de Cap, at least the leaders are, and the peloton is, and these are the leaders now, 5 kilometers to go, and the climb length being 9 kilometers. The main field is yet to get onto this climb.
Yeah, Dutch are starting with 20 riders at the start of the Tour de France this year, the second highest represented nation after France, who started with 41. So yes, they are a little bit disappointed to see a 23-man breakaway getting clear and none of their riders present. But let's not forget, they've got a rider in the top 10 in the overall, two riders in the top 10 in the overall standings. Robert Hessig lies 7th at 6:23 and Bauke Mollema at 10th, 8:53 back. So it's difficult to go for all kinds of things in the Tour de France. You've got to pick and choose your goals.
It is, and that's a very good result for Serge Powell. Still no worry in the amongst the Sky team. They're happy to eclipse the peloton as they ride on the front, doing all they have to do. They don't expect to be attacked at this part of the race because 70 kilometers is a long way to go. But they'll try as the leaders are on the way down. Thomas de Gent was over there in the places with Boysenhagen as well, but the winner Serge Powell's. Peter Sagan now is going to show them all how to really descend a mountain, former ex-mountain biker.
Well, everybody knows the acrobatic ability of Peter Sagan, Phil, going around these corners, almost 70 kilometers. I think he was just trying to read the number plate on the back of the car there.
I'll tell you what, he really laid into that corner. Yeah. He's descending at around about 38 to 40 miles an hour at the moment, 62 kilometers.
And if you think that's a rather weird looking position he's getting himself into there, Phil, it's very much like the ski tuck position. You get down and make your body as aerodynamic as possible. And he's actually trying to push himself up to the slipstream with the motorbike. It's the motorbike's responsibility to get out of the way. But sometimes on these corners, a push bike can actually go around the corners much quicker than the motorbike.
Absolutely right, and the peloton themselves continue on the ascent as well. They've still got to go over the top. He wants it.
Yep, looking over his shoulder saying, okay guys, as we get a chance here to look at the live speed of Peter Sagan, almost 60 kilometers an hour, and he's not even pedaling currently. He goes round these corners. He is a magnificent bike handler. Talking to a lot of the guys on the circuit now, they say, well, you might have seen some good, good bike handlers in your time, but he said there are very, very few who can handle Peter Sagan. He's one of the few guys that, well, I know, who in professional cycling on the road, who actually can pull a wheelie going downhill. He really is incredible. Fantastic to see. So Sagan, that little bit of a cheeky hand signal there was to the other guys. Come on, guys, let's all work together here. But I don't think anybody can keep up with him just for the moment. And a bit further down, this is Micah. He's the rider who had that little bit of a mechanical or a little accident just a while back, but he's now riding himself back into contact with the main field. So there we go. Just gets onto the back group. There's Kwiatkowski on the left-hand side in the white jersey, the world champion. He was very aggressive on yesterday's stage, even despite getting caught having another last-minute attack. This little descent here, I think Peter Sagan is enjoying himself. This is Perichon, and he just lost a few lengths going around that corner. It's a very good descent here. We're dropping away now from the first climb of the day, the Col de Cabra. The Col de Mons is about 50 kilometers away, so they've got about 35 kilometers to ride on what is very difficult terrain. It's undulating, lots of corners, and starts to slightly ride up to the foot of the climb. Then we drop down into the outskirts of Gap, and the riders at one stage are not very much more than about 3 kilometers away from the finish line. Then they'll take a left-hand turn and climb up this massive climb, a 9-kilometer climb itself of the Col de Mons, and then plunge straight back down and come out onto the main road here about 3 kilometers away from the finish. The French have an expression called pédaler dans le beurre, which means you're pedaling in butter, and it looks very much as if that bloke was there, because that looks quite easy, his pedaling style, and he's not going anywhere.
Well, he should be, but he needs to pedal a bit quicker. 13 minutes 10, we're still going up here. Well, when we get to the next climb of the Col de Mons, it's a climb of 9 kilometers, and it's pretty steep. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult. There we are, Jens. Now, Jens, why didn't you retire and start doing that?
Well, I guess trying to break the rhythm up here. They were probably thinking, okay, this group is way too big to make it work, and every rider, even though they are going together in the same group, but everybody has his own plan, and probably some riders think, no, we got to arrive with a smaller group towards the last climb, and they try to test the legs of the others. It's a long way to go still for them, but they decided to start early to test the others.
Yeah, but funny thing is, Jensi, although we were looking at to me it was the response by Andre Grivko, but the man who actually made it the first move there was Peter Sagan himself. And Peter Sagan, for me, Sagan really is in a very difficult situation, because he's the only rider from his team. He doesn't have any help in this group, and he's the one who seems to be the one to want to split the group up.
That is true on a descent, yes, but I think we see him here at the back of the group. I think he was just pointing out he wants to talk to his team car, maybe get some new tactical instructions, maybe looking for, getting another water bottle. He still has 2 bottles on his bike, so maybe just wants to talk to his director to develop a plan of how they want to try to win that stage today.
Yeah, but we know that he's a great sprinter, but he's also a good man when it comes to going downhill. And we saw at the top of the climb up to the summit of the Col de Mons that they really hardly got rid of him on a very difficult hilltop finish. Now, I've got a funny feeling today, if they don't get rid of him by more than about a minute and a half, they're not going to get rid of him. He seems to be changing his radio a lot during the course of the day, so he obviously feels that this is a great chance to get himself the victory. He hasn't won a stage in the Tour since 2013.
Yeah, and that's what he would love to say. As we said earlier, if you win the green jersey for the sprinters, you like to win at least one stage of the race at the same time.
Okay, going to make a start on this.
Well, he really is.
And then
spending,
get the food
there's a call here for Team Sky. That's over race radio, just having a look to see what the problem is. There's a little problem at the right there as well, and that was for AG2R. So we're over the technical part of the descent now. The road will widen out a fraction, up and down. Nothing really too much to worry about now until the riders get to around about 175 kilometers into the race. And at that point, then they will be starting to line themselves up in the small town of Marcelon, or the Fresinouse, and that's when they will drop down into the outskirts of Gap, and they really aren't very far away. Now, Bardet has his hand up. Romain Bardet is the rider who put his hand up there, so he also has got a mechanical problem, just a little bit further in front of Villermoz. He could be a rider with a chance to do something this afternoon. He likes that explosive little climb down towards the end, but the problem is this is not a hilltop finish as his victory was some time ago in the first week of the Tour de France. He's now got to think about the fact that you've got that long descent, and it's quite a long way from the top of the Col de Mons. It's 12 kilometers to go to the finish. And again, having made the technical part of the descent, a truce has been called in the main field. As we look at this, is a big gap. I think this is the biggest gap we've had since the start of the Tour de France. 13:36 between the leading group of 23 riders and the main field. So I think now we've come to the point with 50 kilometers to go where everybody's going back, taking on board drinks, and they're all getting ready to the final phase, because even though they know that they're not going to be able to get themselves the stage victory in that group behind it, they realize that it's a very important stage for trying to pull back time. But now there's a little bit of a split here, and Edvald Boasson-Hagen has seen this as an opportunity, joined there by Marco Haller. He's a rider in the white jersey. He's the champion of Austria. They've seen this as a chance to maybe slip away from Peter Sagan. Now, Peter Sagan, as I've said earlier, he's completely isolated. But look at this. Forget about that. He's going to take responsibility himself. Well, you know, it's going to be difficult, Phil, for Peter Sagan, because he is isolated in this group, and every time there's a move, it's up to him, and they all know that he's the fastest rider in the group, so he won't have too many mates.
Well, I think this is a prime move, and it's the only way, Paul, because Sagan is a fighter. He knows they're all going to attack him.
It looks like Adam Hansen coming along, and that's not surprising, because I was just saying a few moments ago that Thomas de Gent had done an awful lot of work in this group, trying to favour the possibility of Adam Hansen getting into the split once it happens.
Well, Boasson-Hagen, his tail is up here. The tail of his new team, MTN Quebec, is riding high, because they actually won the team prize yesterday, which was hot on the heels of their stage win at Monda with Stephen Cummings. And before that, 4 days in the polka dot jersey for Daniel Tekla-Heimenot, who is in this front move at the moment. Now they want another stage win. Boasson-Hagen looks over to see if his attack has done any damage. A reaction from Peter Sagan, tried to bring the whole pack across, or just one rider maybe. Well, the gap is going out to a quarter now. As far as the day's win is concerned, we can forget the winner. It's right here in this front group. But now they are anxious about the size of the group, and they're trying desperately to break it down.
Well, they're all very, very concerned about the presence of Peter Sagan. I think they should be, because you saw with what ease Peter Sagan closed all of that down as soon as the attacks started to come thick and fast. The big move first came from Edvald Boasson-Hagen. He likes a breakaway like this, but he won't like the number of riders who are in there. Thomas de Gent, well, as soon as he saw the group come back together, he started to keep this group organised, because I think he probably agrees with me that it's too far from the finish for the breakaway to go clear. There are too many riders in this group at 23, so there's always somebody who's got a little bit of energy to close it down. And he's going like a train right now.
He is, and it must be one of the most picturesque lines down here as well. Well, Hansen's working away. He's been the former time trial champion of his country. He's a Queenslander, which is a hot part of Australia. So today, as far as the weather's concerned, won't present him with a problem. He's ridden 11 Grand Tours. I think the record sits at 13. He's finished every one as well, Paul. When he had that crash in the first week, we thought, oh no, he's not going to make it. And here he is, still making it.
Still making it, and still making it look very easy as well, as we see his average speed creeping up there to almost 50 kilometers an hour. That's 31 miles an hour. These guys in the chasing group behind are going to have to really get themselves organised, because once he starts to move forward, well, it'll be difficult to pull back. Jensi, I think that Adam Hansen is probably the worst rider that breakaway group could have let go clear off the front, because you know, as I do, how powerful he is and how hard he is to catch.
Yep, definitely he is a good guy to be out there. Plus, he's backed up by his teammates, so the guys chasing him, they know the second they get on Adam Hansen's wheel, they're going to get punished by an attack from Thomas de Gent. So he's in a pretty good position, and if they hesitate a moment too long, he pulls it off. He's a pretty good climber as well. He knows how to handle his bike on descents. So yeah, if he arrives on the bottom of the climb with a minute, it looks very likely that he might have a more than a good chance to actually pull it off and win a stage again for himself.
Well, he's certainly settling in now. He got away 46 kilometres out. He's been in the lead for 5 kilometres. He started to build a lead. Our computer's saying he's got about 31 seconds over the chase behind, which is not really a chase just now. I think they might gamble and see if they can hit him when the roads get a little bit more difficult, and that's not far away.
Now it looks as if these two riders are about to join their force, and you see how Adam Hansen just keeps taking on board food, just keeps the energy levels topped up. I think he needs to sit back and wait.
7.
So now we're looking at a situation where we have two leaders, the gap over the chasing riders. And there's Nibali.
Well, we switch to the back of the field here. This is Vincenzo Nibali, last year's dominant winner of the Tour de France, but he's 8 minutes and 17 seconds back at the moment. And that also in the pack, he's 16 minutes and 23 seconds back of the two leaders.
Well, I think we'll just have to put a cross on Vincenzo Nibali's 2015 campaign, but let's not forget, Phil, this is a guy who's won the Grand Tours before. He's won all 3 Grand Tours, and I think he'll come back and fight next year, but this year just somehow things did not seem to go right. The two riders are going to combine their forces. Now that, I think, will be good for Adam Hansen. He's now being joined by Marco Haller. That slightly different coloured jersey there is an indication that he's the national Austrian road racing champion. And he was in that very, very nasty crash at the start. He, in fact, sort of went over the top of the crash and landed on his feet in the grass verge over to the right-hand side. And that was the crash that took out, eventually, Fabian Cancellara.
Well, Haller's the first time in the Tour de France. He's well over 2 hours behind the race leader. So too is Adam Hansen. 2 perfect candidates for the stage victory. But everybody in this front group wants a day of winning in the Tour de France. For that reason, they will have to work very hard to open up a gap. It still leads a group of 21 riders to chase them down.
Yeah, they would have to have a comfortable advantage of a good 1 minute's lead once they start the climb, because as I keep mentioning, this climber, the Col de Mons, climbed up to 1,300 meters in altitude, and that's you know, just getting up there to 4,500 to 4,600 feet. So it's a pretty tough climb, and it's a climb of around 9 kilometers at 5.5. Jens, I'm just thinking that now that that other rider's come up there, that's actually going to be pretty good for Adam Hansen, because there's still a long way to go at 35 kilometers.
Yeah, because it simply shares the workload for him, and it cuts the workload for him in half. They can share their turns on the front, so it's less work for Adam. And the way I see it, Adam is a much better climber and probably a better descender as well. So Adam can use him to help him to go to that climb, and then it's an open game of who of them two is going to be the best climber and trying to make it to the top as quick as possible. But yep, that definitely increases the chances for Adam Hansen to stay out there, definitely by a lot.
Yeah, but the other thing that you mentioned there about the descent, this race has always really been decided on the descent, as we look at the magnificent mountain here of La Seuse. And Adam Hansen, another of those guys who's come into the sport from mountain biking. He is a great handler.
Well, maybe or hopefully he doesn't need to jump across the grass, and he can stay on the roads where how it's supposed to be. And if you hit that last corner back into the valley, it's not far to go from that last corner into the finish line. So there's not much chances to repair a mistake you did on the uphill or a mistake you did on a descent. Once you dropped off the wheel, it is pretty much impossible to come back in the remaining few kilometers, or like little more than 1 mile to the finish line. So you got to be on the wheel if you want to win the sprint, if you want to win the stage. If not, it's a very little chance you're ever going to come back.
Yes, just looking down at La Seuse mountain here, it peaks out at 2,000 meters. Again, most magnificent backdrop. The relief for this climb, it looks as if it's at the edge of a horseshoe. Looking back down the main field. Look at this time gap though, 16.5 minutes back to the main field, 34 kilometers to go. But you can see now, as we get closer to the approach for the next strategic point of the Tour de France, and that of course is the Col de Mons, all of the teams are the overall contenders moving to the front end of the peloton. Sky for Chris Froome, Movistar for Quintana, and BMC looking after TJ Van Garderen. Even though they're 16.75 minutes behind in the race on today's stage, Phil, the leaders have to take this final climb and descent of the day very, very seriously.
Paul, if they continue with this sort of a time gap, MTN Quebec tonight will lead the team race.
That would be amazing to see that happen. They probably never even thought about that at the start of the tour. They'd hoped to get a little bit of something out of the first week of the tour, and they probably could have walked home with a lead in the King of the Mountains jersey for Daniel Tekla-Hymanot. That would be job done, contract fulfilled. Then they got a stage victory with Steve Cummings, which was even icing on the cake. But if they were to lead the team classification...
Well, they started the day 52 minutes behind Movistar. They're currently gaining 3 times 19 minutes.
That's pretty impressive.
So that gives them a lead of a couple of minutes or more over the peloton. We'll see if they can control it. Normally, of course, that gap will come down, but if it doesn't, they'll be smiling tonight for another reason, because they've had such a great tour. 18 minutes 52 and still going up. 21.9 kilometers to go to the finish. This is the chase group, remember now. 65 seconds to the front 2 riders. Obviously the snow comes here pretty shortly because there's no vegetation at the top of these major mountains around here.
I just had a quick glance at the average speed there, Phil. Adam Hansen on the descent down there into the outskirts of Gap was actually touching 75 kilometers an hour, which is just ticking 50 miles an hour downhill.
Well, just watching Adam Hansen here leading the charge at the break itself, of course. Hansen is the man who crashed heavily on stage 2, and we were all feared there, and he was on wet roads as well, that this was the end of Adam Hansen. But no, he waited a little while. He insisted he was going to get back on his bike, and then he tweeted that night about how he's used to living with pain and he'll just have to suffer. And now here he is in a chance of winning the stage.
Well, that's the amazing thing, Phil. When he was holding his shoulder just after that crash, it looked, as very often does, as if he'd injured his collarbone. We found out later that he had, but he hadn't broken the collarbone, but it is stuck together almost with surgical tape, and he had to just hold it in place to try and lessen the pain there. Now, on the leading 2 riders, they've started the climb, and that's going to line up for them to be 9 kilometers in length.
And the peloton still 90 minutes back of those 2 leaders on the climb. And I'm just wondering now whether that breakaway, they're going to have to make an early decision. It's a long climb, it's 8.9 kilometers, but there's so many climbers in that chase group, they know they're going to have to start breaking that group up. You can't leave it till the top now. Team Sky still got control of the peloton and still showing no interest at all, but they know they will be attacked on the Col de Mons. So the climb, they just passed the board, 8.9 kilometers, will top out just over 4,000 feet. There's a man overshot. Serge Powell has gone off wide on that corner.
Just having a look to see what his problem was as he went round that corner. A lot of riders, Phil, have actually been going to the team cars at the back saying that they've got flat tyres, but in fact it isn't flat tyres at all once they get back to the team cars. They've been complaining about the softness of the surface of the road.
You're absolutely right. They're blaming the heat of the day, and that is the very reason that Yoshiba Belocchi crashed on the descent in 2003 of the Col de Mons. And that is why I think the organisation has sent 2 water tankers up there to spray the surface of the descent.
Just to try and keep the road surface as cool as possible. It really is quite amazing how the tar in this part of the world bubbles when you start to get these temperatures. It's been like this for the last couple of days, up as high as 37, 38 degrees Celsius. On a number of occasions, it's really been tickling the 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
20 kilometers to go for the 2 leaders, and in the peloton, they're closing in. They're going to give them a 51-second advantage on the climb. If you're not a climber, that could be a very valuable advantage here. But don't forget that Adam Hansen is not what we call a climber, but he can get up hills.
He's a powerful rider, Adam Hansen. He will certainly be happy starting this climb with almost a 1-minute advantage. It's coming down slowly but surely as they start to get into the gradient. But to me, the most important thing about this final climb of the day, Phil, is not really the climb, it's the descent. It's a dramatic and technical descent into the outskirts of Gap. Haller now has got the gap between himself and everyone else. It's Christophe Riblon of France there moving across a great winner of the Alpe d'Huez stage in the Tour de France a couple of years ago, when the organisation for the 100th anniversary set the race up Alpe d'Huez on 2 occasions. Daniel Tekla-Hymanot in there as well for Eritrea.
And MTN Quebec looking there at Peter Sagan now. They're beginning to break up, and Thomas Buckley here, well, he's very often a favourite sort of climb for him, but I think he's been in trouble the whole tour, dropping back a little bit there.
23 seconds is the gap. Adam Hansen now is looking over his shoulder. He knows there'll be a response. He will know that he's laid a lot of energy on the valley road leading down to this final climb of the day, and he knows that this is the moment or not to get over the top and start the descent. Hansen is a great descender. We know that. He's got an incredible background as a mountain biker. He won the Crocodile Trophy in the northern parts of Australia on 2 occasions. I wonder if he's going to make it snappy on the run down to the finish. AG2R colours there, the brown and white jersey, knows that this is the time that he has to make the move. He's not one of the riders in this group that has the ability to sprint well, but he knows he has to work hard here to try and get rid of that man in the green jersey. Hansen out to the saddle, fighting with his machine now. Daniel Tekla-Hymanov, great to see this rider from Eritrea looking comfortable. A rider who won the King of the Mountains competition in the Criterium de Dauphiné. Now it's Ruben Platzer over the top for Lamprey. These are the moments now. Everyone's looking back. There's still about 4.5 kilometers to go to the top of this climb. Once they hit the King of the Mountains there, then we see Adam Hansen struggling a little bit. Marco Haller, they left a lot of energy on the flat, but they knew they had to make this a move before they got to the start of the climb. Ruben Platzer is the man who's now the lone leader.
Well, as Platzer grits his teeth and digs in here, they're trying to reorganise, but watch out for Christophe Riblon. He triumphed on Alpe d'Huez a couple of years ago where he beat TJ Van Garderen.
But they all know that if they want to win the stage today, Phil, they've got to get rid of the man in the green jersey, Peter Sagan. He's responded to every attack, and this man, as we've said, he's a rider who still at 25 years of age, I don't think he realises what he's going to be good at in the sport of professional cycling. He can do almost anything. He's a magnificent bike handler. He can sprint, he can climb, but he put on a little bit too much weight in the last couple of years to develop his sprinting ability. But here, what a way he's going uphill. He's taking responsibilities, looking for this win.
Here comes an attack.
Yeah, well, look at how...
Look at Sagan.
Unbelievable. He's looking for every possible move. He's not going to let anybody slip away. Thomas Voeckler came up there. It's a sort of little psychological move that Thomas Voeckler always makes. Even when he's in difficulty, he likes to try and pretend to everybody that he's in good form. You're not going to get rid of him in a situation like this, but you can never discount Thomas Voeckler. He's a great winner when it comes down to races, although I think he's getting very much nowadays to the autumn of his career. And look at the wind we were talking about. You can see the flags rippling there, and that's an indication that they're pulling on a full headwind. They're not too far away from the right-hand turn towards the top of this climb, and that's when it's a false flat for a couple of kilometers before they really then start to plunge down the technical descent into the outskirts of Gap.
Now, a lot of riders have missed this split on the climb, including Edvard Bosenhagen. And we can't tell you where they are. The computer's just got smoke coming out of it because I think they're all riding alone up the mountain at the moment, trying to work out. That's a very elite group of 9 then chasing. This is the coming together of the peloton as they continue to race towards the base of the Col de Mons.
Well, there's
look at this, a lot of jumbos.
Well, it's amazing, Phil, when you think about it. They're 20 minutes behind, but they still have to race. They're not even thinking about a stage victory this afternoon, but time is of the essence in the Tour de France. There's a massive headwind on the top slopes of this climb, but the leader, although he looks like he's labouring with his style, rolling his shoulders like that, he's actually almost got a minute advantage over everybody else. It's 55 seconds according to Race Radio.
Well, good for Ruben Platzer. That is a very, very plucky move for him there, and he's pushing on. These boys are waiting. Well, I'm not even sure a minute will be good enough to stay clear of Peter Sagan. He descends so quickly on what is agreed to be probably the most dangerous descent of this year's Tour de France. Now we'll see. They're regrouping. He's going with everything, but nobody picking up the pace here.
No, they're not, but there you can see Thomas de Gent. Interestingly enough, de Gent is doing a lot of pacemaking in this group, and he did so much work in the early part of the race. I'm surprised to see him still surviving. 1.5 kilometers to the top. Ruben Platzer. 55 seconds is his advantage over a chasing group now, which is 9 riders strong. These riders contain, as you can see in the green jersey, Peter Sagan. Now this is a move. There's an acceleration going to come here from Christophe Riblon, but is he going to catch out to Peter Sagan? No, and the acceleration... Why is everybody chasing down these groups, they're asking? Because Peter Sagan, he wants some organisation, but he's not going to let anybody jump away. Michael Rogers. Oh, Richie Porte. He's being left behind by the yellow jersey group. Also slipping away there is Lars Bak. Plenty of damage now. Jonathan Castroviejo. 10 kilometers to go now for the lone leader, Ruben Platzer. So inside of 10 kilometers to go now, and it's still Peter Sagan hasn't got any friends at all in this group. But you know, if they want to bridge the gap of the 1 minute margin, they're really going to have to collaborate together. I'm not sure why Christophe Riblon's got his hand in the air there, because he was trying to catch everybody out with a surprise attack from the back. But it was one of those attacks that the French call that had been telephoned and warned in advance. Roman Kreuziger, Alberto Contador. Contador likes this climb. He knows this climb. It looks as if Chris Froome's in a little bit of difficulty there. 21, Thibaut Pinot. He's just struggling to stay in contact. A bit further behind him is Michael Kirel. Christian Durasek. Now, Geraint Thomas is in third position. Contador just waiting to see if there's any chance, and now watch out for Contador. You know, it's so strange here. We've got two different races going on. We've got the race for the stage victory, and then we've also got the race for time amongst the leaders of the overall standings. This is the start of the descent.
Well, we'll see on the descent now, because 55 seconds is a big gap on that descent, and there seems to be nobody wanting to work with Peter Sagan.
Well, Phil, it's so complicated a stage like this because these guys are further back down the road. They're not thinking about a stage victory this afternoon, but they're thinking about time. Tony Galopin, who's the Frenchman who was in 9th place overall, he's been left behind by this group, and it's all because of the power coming from Roman Kreuziger. Alberto Contador knows this climb, but more importantly, maybe, Phil, he knows the descent.
Well, Contador and Froome had difficulties almost at the same time on the descent back in 2013. And Froome was in the yellow then, and Contador and Froome were off their bikes. We'll see what happens this time now, as the peloton are going to start hitting each other. They're fighting for seconds. Now we're looking at the peloton. Race Radio is saying that Peter Sagan... Oh no, look at that. That was a lock-up of the wheels by the leader, Platzer. That was a flashback. He settled back in as he continues. I'll tell you, this is a tricky way down.
It's a very tricky technical descent, and you have got to be very careful going around these corners. As we mentioned, Phil, you've got that big problem with the tar starting to melt, which makes it much more precarious. You can lose adhesion in the corners very easily if you come into them at the wrong speed and at the wrong angle.
Calmer but even harder moments on the way up for the peloton as they continue. They're closing in on the leaders. That's to be expected. Froome pedals here on his back wheel of his faithful teammate Geraint Thomas, while you've got Valverde sitting on the wheel of Froome. Look at this, look at this. Jams on. Now if he overshoots, what does that say for the rest? Because he's the best bike rider.
Well, I was getting reports that Peter Sagan had attacked. You know, this guy is probably the best bike handler in the business, and he will take every possible risk going down this descent. He knows, Phil, it's a huge deficit to try and bridge on a gap. We're inside of the last 10 kilometres, the last 6 miles of racing, and going downhill like this, that's not much more than 10 minutes of racing into an aerodynamic position. He sees the next corner coming up. He starts to line himself up, goes back over the back wheel a little bit just to put the weight over the back wheel so he can get adherence around that corner. The rider going with him looks to me like it's the IAM cycling rider, and he is a Colombian on that squad. Yeah. That is Pantano. Now, what a day it would be if he could get the victory on Colombian Independence Day.
Yes, well, he's riding a brilliant race, Pantano, as well. As this is Platzer back in control, and the gap still 48 seconds. This is Riblon being chased by the Colombian.
So the way it looks to me today, the choice is it's all or nothing. It's hospital or podium place. This is a crazy fast descent, and this rider is taking it to the maximum. You can see Peter Sagan dropping all his opinions from that breakaway just by showing his superior bike skills and punching out of these corners with, you know, a lot of horsepower. He wants that win, but Ruben Plaza still ahead. This is coming down to the very last meters of today's stage, and I don't even dare to say who's gonna win, because each corner is a different game for itself.
You're absolutely right, Lens. They may have given him a bit too much, but he's got to get down safely. If you see the way that Peter Sagan shifts his body weight on that bicycle, I'd be convinced he was riding a Moto Grand Prix.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, it's almost like a 2-for-1 here. We've got two races going on for the price of one this afternoon. We've got a race for the glory of winning a stage into Gap, and that's why these guys we're looking at here are taking all kinds of risks to try and get down to the bottom of this climb first and win the stage. But in this group, a little bit further down the road, 18 minutes behind, they are thinking about the positions in the overall standings to win the Tour de France after 3 weeks, and that's why Chris Froome can expect to see challenges coming
but
once this descent
the group
starts.
is only containing the favourites now. They've blown everybody else away here in the main field. You've got TJ Van Garderen, all the men that matter. The chase goes under 5 kilometres to go. We're finding a new star in the Tour de France here, because Jolinson Pantano is the rider in our camera, riding his first Tour de France. He's a Colombian. He's trying to stay with Peter Sagan.
You see the way Peter Sagan was going around those corners, though, and I have to say, well, no, sorry, that's Roman Kreuziger. His job done for the afternoon. He's slipping away. He had tried to set this up. He's eliminated nearly everybody else in the main field. The one rider missing from the top 10, though, is Tony Galopin, the Frenchman. He obviously felt this just a little bit of a climb too far today. The question is, has this man got enough? It's coming down very, very quickly. He's still holding on to 35 seconds advantage, according to the race radio.
That might be enough, but it's downhill all the way to the line now.
4 kilometres around that corner. Every inch of tarmac that he can, he's using. He swings it around there. He knows it now. A little bit further down there, Ruben Plata is onto the flat road. He's used all of the technical descent. He now has a half a minute's advantage. Watch this here. Peter Sagan, it is magic. It is poetry to watch the way this man handles the bike, although there it's a poetry to watch the way he corrected his line around that corner. Right, he's off the descent now. There's the final right-hand bend onto the main road, and that main road will then line up for a 3-kilometre charge into Gap. Watch the way he handles this. Straight over, full speed ahead around that corner. Now he'll be looking to see if he can see.
He's come out onto the main road now. He's off the most serious part of the descent, but he still has to bridge quite a few seconds. I've got to say half a minute at the moment. That could be too much, you know.
Well, you've got to think about it. As we look at Ruben Plata here, Phil, he's got a 450-metre advantage over the second-place rider on the road, Peter Sagan. Sagan has finished in second place 8 times over the last couple of years. He hasn't won a stage in the Tour de France since 2013. He's won the the sprints competition 3 years in a row. He is itching. He will do everything he can to close down 450 metres, but it's going to be so very, very difficult.
Now look at this group, Paul. These are the men who are challenging to win the Tour de France. They're still locked together there. The top 6 riders still in that group as that peloton has shrunk to nothing. Ruben Plata is trying to push on now for what would be the biggest victory of his life, and his career started 16 years ago.
Well, just looking down at this, I'm not sure if you're still online with us there, Jensi, but do you think that Peter Sagan, he's a special guy, but has he got enough time left to catch the lone leader? It's looking like he's running out to me.
No, there's not enough kilometers left and way too much time out there. Not even Peter Sagan, not even the best time trier in the world, can chase down 30 seconds and 2 kilometers. There would be 15 seconds, but no, it's no way. Sagan is going to finish second, and Plaza has it. Plaza has it, and he deserved. He took his chances, he went out early, so it's a well-deserved win, and unfortunately for Peter, he's going to finish second again.
The second place for Peter Sagan, but also, Paul, more points in green jersey. I think today he probably took enough points to have won that green jersey in Paris.
But Phil, I don't think he was thinking about that competition this afternoon. This is a man who's been itching to get a stage victory. Coming alongside him, up behind him there is Pantano, the Colombian rider, and for Peter Sagan now, he tried.
Never mind, he tried, but what about the man taking third? Celebrates Colombia's Independence Day. First time Tour rider, third on this stage, Jolinson Pantano. Then comes Simon Geschke, Bob Jungels, Christophe Reblon. Thomas de Gent here.
Yeah, Thomas de Gent. Daniel Tekla-Heimann. It's been a big day, Phil, for FTA Quebec, because they're going to leap up the team classification at the end of today. And what a lot of work was done by Thomas de Gent.
Right, well, that's the first segment of the Tour de France over, but remember, there is now a race for the men who are challenging to win this race in Paris, and they are all locked together at around about 18 minutes further back.
Yes, there's a double header here this afternoon. It's almost as if you're going to the cinema and have two movies in the same afternoon. Thomas Vogler crosses the line there and puts his head down a fraction. He was in the right move at the right time. But there we go. This is where we'll see the next phase of the race take place.
Oh, and there's a little attack, and that looks like it might be
Bardet.
Bardet it is who's gone. Now he's trying to claim a few seconds here and continue his ascent of the classification. That's caused the reaction. Alejandro Valverde's gone to take Contador with him, Vincenzo Nibali, and of course the yellow jersey, followed by Quintana.
Well, there's been a serious decanting here for the quality, Phil, because if you look at the names of the riders in that group behind, it really is top class. All of the big men are up there. I think Bardet really there just attacking a little bit for pride, Phil, to try and see whether or not he could get himself up into the top 10 in the overall standings and maybe to try and leapfrog Warren Barguil, who sits at 2 minutes ahead of him. But, you know, that came to naught, and it just goes to show that Alejandro Valverde has got great form. This is, I think, a little bit of an appetizer of what's to come over the next few days of racing when we get up into the Alps.
From this is Warren Barguil who's gone. Well, trying to gain seconds. These two Frenchmen are trying to get up the overall classification.
Another youngster who had a very difficult start to the Tour de France with an accident. They're not too concerned about him. You see how they're looking at each other. And Warren Barguil, I think, may well move up into the top 10 today, because one of the top 10 riders missed out on the split there, and that's Tony Galopin. It's always a question of pride for the Frenchman to be best placed French rider in the Tour de France. This guy says, well, I'm not concerned about being the best French rider. I want to be a rider who can finish on the podium in a couple of years' time.
Well, it's a good way to start, and Contador is warming up for an attack. Bardet's got his back wheel, so too has Alejandro Valverde, and now there's got to be a reaction from the others here. Three big names going. A little lifting of the pace there, as now it is Chris Froome himself who's catching up.
When push comes to shove, Chris Froome always takes the responsibility. He knows he can't let Contador, Alejandro Valverde go, and straight onto his wheel is the white jersey, Nairo Quintana. Contador looks back. Look at that grimace. That grimace all over his face there looks a little bit like a smile. Now as Froome starts to lose numbers, it looks as if his teammate there has gone, but Nibali goes over the top.
That one might work because he's got a little bit of time behind to find, and now Vincenzo Nibali, who steadily got back into this year's Tour after winning it last year, he started the move. Contador, is he going to try Hessingis?
Robert Hessing now for Lotto Jumbo trying to make the move, but you know, the way they're attacking here on this part of the course just indicates to me that we're going to have a massive battle on the downhill, and I just hope they have had the warning from their team managers about how precarious the descent is, and they know which of the corners to keep a close eye on.
Look at the speed of Nibali climbing this hill.
Yep, 37 kilometers an hour, and let's not forget TJ Van Garderen, who starts today in third place in the overall standings. He's right on the wheel there of the yellow jersey. He knows how important the next few days are for him. He said before the start of this Tour de France he didn't want to finish fifth again. He's finished fifth on 2 previous occasions. He wants the podium, and the way this race unfolds, that is still not out of his sights.
Well, who's going to make the next move? Geraint Thomas was yo-yoing. He's gone straight back to the front, to the side of Chris Froome there. Nibali is getting on with this.